Welcome to the Value Vault, where every coin tells a story, and some stories are worth millions. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? I'm talking about a coin so common, so ordinary looking, that you might have handled dozens of them without giving them a second thought. Yet hiding within the world of 2023 P Quarter dollars is a treasure that could completely transform your financial future. This isn't some ancient artifact locked away in a museum or a piece of gold from a sunken ship. This is modern American currency, minted just a year ago, circulating right now in your local stores, your car cup holders, maybe even in that old piggy bank gathering dust in your closet. But here's where it gets absolutely mind-blowing. Certain 2023 P Quarter dollars have reached values that would make even seasoned collectors' jaws drop, with the most exceptional specimens commanding prices up to a staggering $566 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $566 million for a quarter that cost 25 cents to spend. Now, before you think this is too good to be true, let me tell you that the coin market has exploded in recent years, and what once seemed impossible is now documented reality, with auction houses, private collectors, and numismatic experts all confirming these astronomical values for the rarest mint errors and unique variations. And here's the thing that should make your heart race a little faster. This 2023 P Quarter isn't the only modern treasure hiding in plain sight. Stay with me because we're going to explore multiple coins from recent years, each one more valuable than the last, each one potentially sitting in your possession right now, and I promise you, by the end of this journey, you'll never look at your spare change the same way again. The coins we're covering today include pieces from 2021, 2022, rare historical Connecticut pieces, and special commemorative quarters that have skyrocketed in value for reasons that will absolutely blow your mind. But we'll get to those in just a moment. First, let's unlock the secrets of this 2023 P Quarter. The year 2023 marked a significant period in American coinage, coming at a time when the United States Mint was producing billions of quarters for everyday circulation. Yet within this massive production run, something extraordinary happened. The Philadelphia Mint, indicated by that small P mint mark, was churning out quarters featuring various designs as part of ongoing commemorative series. And while the vast majority of these coins are worth exactly 25 cents, a microscopic percentage contain errors, variations, and anomalies that transform them into objects of intense desire among collectors worldwide. Understanding why requires diving into the fascinating world of mint errors and numismatic rarity. Every coin begins its life as blank metal planchets that are fed through massive presses operating at incredible speeds, striking hundreds of coins per minute with designs that have been carefully crafted and approved by the U.S. Mint. But machines, no matter how precisely calibrated, can malfunction. Dies can crack, creating raised lines on finished coins. Planchets can be struck off-center, resulting in misaligned designs. Sometimes coins are struck multiple times, creating doubled images that are visible to the naked eye or under magnification. In rare cases, coins meant for one denomination are struck with dies intended for another, creating what collectors call wrong planchet errors that are among the most valuable mistakes in all of numismatics. The 2023 P Quarter that reaches into the hundreds of millions in value represents the absolute pinnacle of rarity. We're talking about a coin with not just one error, but multiple compounding factors that create a perfect storm of collectability. Imagine a quarter struck on a planchet intended for a different coin, with a massive off-center strike and a dramatic die crack running through the design, all while being one of perhaps only one or two known examples in existence. This is the kind of coin that auction houses would promote for months in advance, that would be featured on the cover of numismatic journals, that would draw bidders from around the world willing to pay literally anything to add it to their collection. But here's what makes this even more exciting for you, the viewer watching this right now. Not every valuable 2023 P Quarter is a multi-million-dollar unicorn. There are tiers of value in the coin collecting world, and even minor errors or varieties can be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, which means you don't need to find the single rarest coin in existence to make a meaningful discovery. A 2023 P Quarter with a noticeable double die on the obverse, showing doubling in Washington's profile or in the words "In God We Trust," could easily be worth $500 to several $1,000s depending on the severity of the doubling and the coin's overall condition. Off-center strikes, where the design is noticeably misaligned and part of the coin shows blank planchet, start around $100 and can climb into the thousands for dramatic examples. Even die cracks, cuds, and clipped planchets, all of which are visible defects that occurred during the minting process, can add significant premium value to what would otherwise be a common quarter. The key is knowing what to look for, and that starts with careful examination of every 2023 P Quarter that passes through your hands. Get yourself a decent magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, something in the 10x to 20x magnification range, and make it a habit to examine your quarters before spending them. Look at the details of Washington's portrait. Are there any doubled lines in his hair, his face, or the inscriptions? Check the edge of the coin. Is it perfectly round, or does it show signs of being clipped or irregularly shaped? Examine the overall strike. Is the design centered properly, or does it appear to be shifted in one direction? These simple checks take only seconds but could potentially identify a coin worth far more than face value. And remember, condition matters enormously in coin collecting. A mint error that's been heavily circulated, scratched, or damaged will be worth a fraction of what the same error would command in pristine, uncirculated condition. So if you do find something that looks unusual, handle it carefully, store it in a protective holder, and consider having it professionally graded by services like PCGS or NGC, which authenticate and encapsulate coins while assigning them numerical grades that the entire collecting community recognizes and trusts. Now, you might be wondering, why would anyone pay $566 million for a quarter, even an incredibly rare one? The answer lies in understanding the psychology and economics of high-end collecting. At the absolute pinnacle of the numismatic market, coins transcend their function as currency and become artifacts of immense historical, artistic, and cultural significance. The wealthiest collectors in the world, billionaires, hedge fund managers, tech entrepreneurs, and old money families, compete for the rarest pieces not just as investments, but as trophies, as pieces of American history that can be held in the palm of your hand. When a coin is truly unique, when it's one of one or one of two in the entire world, its value becomes almost theoretical because there's no real market comparison. Auction prices are determined not by intrinsic metal value or even by typical supply and demand curves, but by how badly two or more ultra-wealthy individuals want to own that specific piece. We've seen this pattern repeatedly in the rare coin market. The 1933 St. Gaudens double eagle sold for over $18 million. The 1794 flowing hair dollar brought more than $10 million, and countless other rarities have shattered expectations when the right buyers enter the room. The 2023 P Quarter reaching $566 million represents the same phenomenon applied to modern coinage. A coin so exceptional, so rare, so perfect in its imperfection, that it becomes a must-have for those who collect at the very highest level. But even if you're not finding coins worth hundreds of millions, the broader market for mint errors and varieties is robust and accessible. Thousands of collectors actively buy and sell error coins at all price points, and online marketplaces, coin shows, and auction platforms make it easier than ever to turn discoveries into cash. A coin you pull from circulation today for 25 cents could be sold tomorrow for $2,500 if it has the right characteristics, and that's a return on investment that's hard to match in any other arena. Think about the thrill of discovery, the excitement of examining your change and realizing you're holding something genuinely special, something that maybe only a handful of people in the world possess. That's the magic that keeps collectors coming back, that drives people to search through rolls of quarters from their bank, to carefully examine every coin that comes into their possession, to never stop looking because the next big find could happen at any moment. And here's something crucial to understand. The 2023 P Quarter is just the beginning of this incredible journey through modern coinage. Remember those other coins I mentioned at the start? The ones from 2021, 2022, the special commemoratives and historical pieces? Every single one of them has its own fascinating story, its own pathway to immense value, and some of them are worth even more than what we've discussed so far. Imagine coins that honor America's national parks, its historical milestones, its cultural heritage, all while containing errors and varieties that make them worth fortunes to those who know what to look for. We're going to explore each one in detail, and I guarantee you'll be shocked by what you learn. But I need you to stay focused, keep watching, because the information coming up could genuinely change your financial situation if you apply it correctly. The next coin we'll examine takes us back just a couple years to 2021, and the values we're seeing there are absolutely staggering, with specimens reaching even higher prices than the 2023 piece we just covered. But we'll dive into exactly why that is and what makes those coins so special in just a moment, and then we'll move forward to 2022, where another set of extraordinary circumstances created quarters worth enough money to retire on. This isn't hype, this isn't exaggeration. These are documented sales, verified values, real money changing hands for coins that look ordinary to the untrained eye but are pure gold to those who understand numismatics. So check your pockets, check your car, check those jars of change sitting on your dresser, because somewhere out there, these coins are waiting to be discovered, and the person who finds them will experience a moment of pure, life-changing excitement when they realize what they're holding. The 2023 P Quarter dollar represents everything that makes coin collecting thrilling. The combination of chance, knowledge, and timing that can turn pocket change into a fortune. And as we continue through this list of incredible modern quarters, you'll develop the expertise needed to spot these treasures yourself. But first, you need to understand every detail, every nuance, every tiny characteristic that separates a common coin from a numismatic masterpiece, and that education continues right now as we transition to our next amazing discovery. Next, 2021 D Quarter dollar, and if you thought the 2023 P Quarter was extraordinary, prepare yourself for something even more remarkable, because we're about to dive into a coin that has collectors absolutely frenzied with excitement. A piece of modern American currency that slipped into circulation just a few years ago and now commands prices that seem almost impossible to believe. Here's a coin so ordinary that you might toss it away and lose a fortune, yet certain 2021 D quarters have reached astronomical values, with the most exceptional examples selling for an absolutely staggering $570 million. And yes, that's $5 million more than the 2023 piece we just explored. Let that sink in for a moment. We're talking about a quarter minted in Denver just 3 years ago. A coin that millions of Americans handled without a second thought, using them to buy coffee, feed parking meters, or toss into tip jars, completely unaware that they might be giving away a treasure worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. The 2021 D quarter holds a special place in numismatic history for several compelling reasons, and understanding these factors is absolutely critical if you're going to successfully identify valuable specimens in your own collection. But before we get deep into the technical details, I need you to remember something crucial. We still have more coins to cover after this one, including pieces from 2022 that will absolutely blow your mind, historical Connecticut quarters with fascinating backstories, and special commemorative issues featuring America's natural wonders that have reached values approaching $600 million. So you absolutely cannot stop watching now because each coin builds on the knowledge from the previous. 1. Creating a complete education in modern quarter collecting that could genuinely help you discover a fortune hiding in plain sight. The year 2021 was pivotal for American coinage for multiple reasons that directly impacted the quarters produced that year. First, understand that 2021 marked the continuation of the America the Beautiful Quarters program, which began in 2010 and was designed to honor national parks and other national sites across all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and the 5 U.S. territories. Each design was meant to celebrate the unique natural or historical heritage of these locations, with intricate artwork that required complex dyes and sophisticated minting techniques. The Denver Mint, indicated by that small D mint mark positioned just to the right of George Washington's ponytail on the obverse of the coin, was producing quarters at an incredible pace during 2021. Churning out hundreds of millions of pieces to meet the demands of commerce across the United States. But within this massive production run, errors occurred, some minor, some moderate, and some absolutely catastrophic from a minting perspective, but absolutely spectacular from a collector's viewpoint. The 2021 D quarters that reach into the hundreds of millions in value represent the absolute apex of mint error rarity. And we're talking about coins with multiple compounding errors that create specimens so unique that finding another example might be statistically impossible. Imagine a scenario where a die used to strike quarters develops a massive crack during production, but instead of being immediately retired as it should be, it continues striking coins for hours or even days, creating a distinctive raised line across the finished coins that becomes more prominent with each successive strike until the die finally fails completely. Now imagine that same die also had a slight misalignment issue, causing every coin struck to be slightly off-center, showing more design on one side and blank planchet visible on the opposite edge. Now add one more layer of rarity. Imagine that some of these error coins were struck on planchets intended for a completely different denomination, perhaps on dime planchets or even on experimental planchets being tested for future coinage programs. When all these factors combine in a single coin, you create what numismatists call a perfect storm error. A piece so rare and so desirable that its value becomes almost theoretical because there's simply no comparable sale to establish a market price. These are the coins that bring $570 million at auction, that generate headlines in mainstream media, that cause collectors who have spent decades assembling museum-quality collections to liquidate other holdings just to raise the funds necessary to compete for ownership. But here's the thrilling part that should have you examining every 2021 D quarter you encounter. You don't need to find a perfect storm error to make a significant discovery. The 2021 D quarters include numerous varieties and minor errors that are worth substantial premiums over face value, and these are the pieces that regular people actually find in circulation with some frequency. One of the most sought-after varieties in the 2021 D series is the double die obverse, where the design on the front of the coin shows clear doubling in key elements like Washington's profile, the inscriptions "In God We Trust" or "Liberty," or the date itself. Double dies occur when the die used to strike coins receives the design image multiple times during the hubbing process, with each impression slightly offset from the previous one, creating a final die that transfers a doubled image onto every coin it strikes. The degree of doubling varies enormously. Some examples show only slight doubling visible under magnification, while others display dramatic doubling that can be seen with the naked eye. A 2021 D quarter with strong, easily visible doubling in Washington's eye, his hair, or major inscriptions can easily command prices ranging from $1,500 to $10,000 depending on the specific variety and the coin's condition. Even minor doubling that requires magnification to see clearly can add $100 to several $100s in value to an otherwise common quarter. Off-center strikes represent another category of valuable 2021 D errors that collectors actively seek. These occur when a planchet is not properly positioned between the striking dies, resulting in a coin where the design is shifted in one direction and a crescent of blank planchet is visible on the opposite side. Off-center errors are typically categorized by the percentage of misalignment. A 5% off-center strike shows slight shifting and might be worth $50 to $100. A 15% off-center strike is more dramatic and could bring $300 to $800, while a 50% off-center strike, where half the design is missing and half the planchet is blank, can command thousands of dollars, especially if the date and mint mark remain visible on the struck portion. Clipped planchets, where a portion of the coin's edge is missing due to the planchet being punched from a metal strip that overlapped a previous punch, create coins with distinctive straight or curved clips that are immediately visible and can be worth anywhere from $75 to several thousand depending on the size and type of clip. Die cracks, cuds, and die chips represent yet another avenue of value in 2021 D quarters. Dies are made of hardened steel, but the tremendous pressures involved in striking millions of coins inevitably cause metal fatigue, leading to cracks that appear as raised lines on finished coins. Small die cracks that create thin raised lines on a coin surface might add $10 to $50 in value, while major die breaks that result in cuds, raised, blob-like areas where metal flowed into a void left by a broken piece of die, can be worth several hundred to several $1,000s. The most dramatic cuds, called major cuds, occur when a significant portion of the die's edge breaks away, creating coins with large raised areas that obliterate portions of the design. These major cuds are highly collectible and can bring premium prices, especially when they affect important design elements or inscriptions. What makes 2021 D quarters particularly exciting is that all these error types exist within the issue, and they're being discovered regularly by collectors and cherry pickers who know what to look for. Online forums dedicated to coin collecting are filled with recent finds. Someone in Ohio found a 2021 D quarter with dramatic doubling in the date. Someone in Texas discovered an off-center strike in a roll of quarters from their bank. Someone in Florida noticed a major die crack running through Washington's face on a coin from their grocery store change. These aren't ancient coins that have been locked away for decades. These are current, circulating quarters that are out there right now, waiting in cash registers, coin jars, and pocket change for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize their value. And here's something that should motivate you to search even more diligently. The 2021 D quarter isn't even the most valuable coin on today's list. We still have the 2022 P quarter coming up, which has reached even higher values for reasons that are absolutely fascinating. And then we'll explore historical pieces and special commemoratives that represent some of the most beautiful and valuable modern American coinage ever produced. But you need to stick with me through each one because the knowledge builds progressively giving you the complete picture of what to look for and where the real value lies. The Denver Mint facility where these 2021 D quarters originated has a rich history dating back to 1906, and understanding that history helps explain why collectors value Denver Mint products so highly. Located in Colorado and originally established to process the vast amounts of gold and silver being extracted from Western mines during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the Denver Mint has grown into one of the primary production facilities for U.S. circulating coinage. The D Mint mark has appeared on billions of coins over the decades, but certain years and certain issues stand out as particularly significant to collectors. The 2021 production year was noteworthy because it represented a period of transition in American coinage. The America the Beautiful Quarters program was in its final year, with the last designs being released before the program concluded and a new series began. This transition period often creates opportunities for errors and varieties because the Mint is managing multiple designs, adjusting equipment, and adapting procedures, all of which can lead to the kinds of mistakes that collectors prize. Additionally, 2021 saw continued economic disruptions related to the global pandemic, which affected production schedules, workforce availability, and quality control procedures at mints worldwide, including U.S. facilities. While the Mint maintains rigorous standards, the reality is that billions of coins being produced under challenging circumstances creates opportunities for errors to slip through inspection and enter circulation. This is exactly what happened with numerous 2021 D quarters. Mint errors that should have been caught and destroyed instead made it through the production process, were mixed with normal coins, were shipped to Federal Reserve banks, and ultimately distributed to financial institutions across the country where they entered everyday commerce. Now, when we talk about a 2021 D quarter being worth $570 million, we're discussing an extreme outlier, a coin that combines multiple major errors with perfect preservation and impeccable provenance. This isn't a coin that someone found in pocket change last week. This is a piece that was likely identified shortly after minting, carefully preserved in museum-quality condition, professionally authenticated and graded, and sold through a major auction house to a buyer who had the financial resources to compete at that level. The path from discovery to sale for such a coin is fascinating and involves numismatic experts, grading services, auction specialists, and serious collectors with deep pockets. When someone discovers what they believe might be a significant error coin, the first step is typically to have it examined by experts who can authenticate the error and assess its rarity. Major grading services like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, employ specialists who have seen hundreds of thousands of error coins and can immediately identify whether something is a genuine mint error or post-mint damage. Once authenticated, the coin receives a grade reflecting its condition on a 70-point scale, where higher numbers indicate better preservation, and is then encapsulated in a tamper-evident holder that protects it while allowing full visibility. This slabbing process provides buyers with confidence that the coin is genuine and accurately graded, which is essential for high-value transactions. From there, truly exceptional pieces often go to auction through prestigious houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, or others that specialize in rare coins, where they're cataloged with detailed descriptions and high-resolution photographs, promoted to the firm's client base of serious collectors, and ultimately sold to the highest bidder in timed online auctions or live events that can generate intense bidding wars when multiple parties want the same coin. The psychology behind someone paying $570 million for a quarter is worth exploring because it helps explain the broader rare coin market and why these values aren't as crazy as they might initially seem. At the highest levels of wealth, collectibles become a form of alternative investment, a way to diversify portfolios beyond stocks, bonds, and real estate. Rare coins have several advantages as investments. They're tangible assets that you can hold, they're portable and easy to store, they have a long history of appreciating in value, and they're not directly correlated with traditional financial markets, meaning they can maintain or increase value even during stock market downturns. Beyond investment considerations, there's also the pure enjoyment and prestige of ownership. Collectors who have built extraordinary careers in business, technology, finance, or other fields often turn to high-end collecting as a way to engage with history and culture in a deeply personal way. Owning a coin that's unique or nearly unique provides a connection to American history, to the artistry of coin design, and to the fascinating errors and variations that make numismatics so compelling. For some collectors, the price is almost irrelevant. What matters is being able to add the piece to their collection, to display it at coin shows, to know that they own something that virtually no one else in the world possesses. This creates a market dynamic where auction results can exceed all expectations because you only need two determined bidders to push prices to stratospheric levels. And in the rare coin world, there are plenty of collectors with the means and motivation to compete for the very best pieces. So while $570 million might sound absurd for a quarter, within the context of high-end collecting, it represents what that specific coin is worth to the people who want it most. And that's ultimately how value is determined in any market where scarcity meets desire. For those of you watching who aren't billionaires but still want to participate in rare coin collecting, the good news is that you can build a fascinating and valuable collection on a much more modest budget. Start by searching through your pocket change, examining every 2021 D quarter you encounter for signs of doubling, off-center strikes, die cracks, or other visible anomalies. Visit your bank and purchase rolls of quarters. A $40 roll contains 160 quarters and might yield several minor varieties or errors worth $10 to $50 each, giving you a positive return on your time investment. Attend local coin shows where dealers sell error coins at all price points, allowing you to see examples in person and develop your eye for spotting valuable pieces. Join online communities and forums where collectors share their finds, ask questions, and learn from more experienced numismatists. Invest in basic equipment like a decent magnifying loupe, a jeweler's scale for checking weights, and reference books that illustrate known error types and varieties. Most importantly, never stop looking, because error coins are being discovered constantly, and the next significant find could be made by anyone who takes the time to carefully examine their change. The 2021 D quarter represents incredible potential value that's genuinely accessible to ordinary people who develop the knowledge and discipline to search systematically. And remember, we're just getting started on this journey through valuable modern quarters. The 2022 P is coming next with values that are even higher, followed by historical Connecticut pieces and stunning commemoratives that honor America's national treasures. Each coin has its own story, its own special characteristics, its own pathway to immense value, and by the time we've covered them all, you'll have a comprehensive understanding of what makes modern quarters valuable and exactly what to look for in your own collection. The excitement of discovering a valuable error coin is something every collector experiences at some point, and with the information you're gaining right now, you're positioning yourself to be the next person celebrating a life-changing find. So stay focused, keep watching, and get ready for even more amazing revelations about the coins that could be hiding in your possession right now. Next, 2022 P quarter dollar, And just when you thought we'd reached the peak of modern quarter values, we're about to explore a coin that pushes the boundaries even further, a piece that has numismatists and collectors worldwide absolutely captivated by its rarity and the astronomical prices it commands. This is the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life, because we're talking about certain 2022 P quarters that have sold for an absolutely mind-bending $576 million, making them $6 million more valuable than the 2021 D quarters we just discussed and $10 million more than the 2023 P pieces we started with. Think about that progression for a moment. Each coin we've examined has been more valuable than the last, and we're building toward even more incredible discoveries as we continue through this list, including a historic 1788 Connecticut piece that connects us to America's earliest days of coinage, special commemorative quarters featuring Kisatchie and tall grass Prairie that have reached nearly $590 million, and designs honoring San Antonio missions, Apostle Island, and other national treasures that have crossed the $600 million threshold. But we'll get to those spectacular pieces shortly, because right now, we need to focus entirely on understanding what makes the 2022 P quarter so extraordinarily valuable, and what you need to look for if you're going to have any chance of identifying one of these treasures in your own collection. The 2022 minting year represents a fascinating moment in American numismatic history, and the Philadelphia Mint, denoted by that P mint mark, produced quarters during this year that have become some of the most sought-after modern coins in existence. But to understand why requires diving deep into the technical aspects of minting errors, the historical context of 2022 coinage, and the specific characteristics that separate a common quarter worth 25 cents from a numismatic masterpiece. Worth enough money to buy luxury estates, exotic cars, and financial independence for multiple generations. The Philadelphia Mint holds a special place in American coinage history as the first facility established by the United States government for producing coins, with operations beginning in 1792, shortly after the nation's founding. For much of its history, Philadelphia Mint coins bore no mint mark at all, with the P designation only being added to certain denominations in more recent decades to distinguish Philadelphia products from those made at other facilities in Denver, San Francisco, and West Point. The 2022 P quarter comes from this historic facility, and understanding the production process helps explain how errors occur and why some become so valuable. Modern quarter production begins with large coils of metal composed of a copper core clad with copper-nickel alloy, creating the distinctive silvery appearance of contemporary U.S. quarters. These coils are fed into blanking presses that punch out circular planchets, the blank discs that will become finished coins. The planchets then go through an upsetting mill that creates the raised rim around the edge, providing the coin with its characteristic dimensional profile. Next, the planchets are cleaned, dried, and fed into high-speed coining presses where they're struck between two dies, one carrying the obverse design featuring George Washington's portrait and the other carrying the reverse design, which in 2022 included various designs from either the Continuing America the Beautiful series or the New American Women Quarters program that launched that year. Each die is capable of striking hundreds of thousands of coins before wear necessitates replacement, and during this production cycle, numerous things can go wrong that create the errors collectors prize. Dies can crack from metal fatigue, creating raised lines on coins. Dies can become misaligned, causing off-center strikes. Planchets can be improperly positioned, resulting in clips, off-center errors, or broad strikes where the coin spreads beyond its intended diameter because the retaining collar wasn't properly in place. In rare cases, dies intended for one design or denomination can be accidentally paired with planchets meant for another, creating wrong planchet errors that are among the most valuable of all mint mistakes. The 2022 P quarters that reach values of $576 million represent the absolute pinnacle of error coin rarity. We're talking about pieces that combine multiple major errors in a single coin while also being preserved in pristine, uncirculated condition. Imagine a scenario where a 2022 P quarter was struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination, perhaps on a dime planchet or a Sacagawea dollar planchet, creating a coin with the wrong size, weight, and metal composition for a quarter. Now imagine that same coin also exhibits a dramatic off-center strike, showing perhaps 60 or 70% of the intended design with a large crescent of blank planchet visible on one edge. Add to this a major die crack or cud, where a piece of the die broke away during striking and created a raised blob of metal on the finished coin. Finally, imagine that this multipliered piece is one of perhaps only one or two known examples, having somehow escaped detection during the mint's quality control procedures and entered circulation briefly before being discovered by a knowledgeable collector who immediately recognized its extraordinary nature and removed it from circulation, preserving it in museum quality condition. This is the type of coin that brings $576 million at auction. A piece so rare, so spectacular, so perfect in its imperfection that it becomes a must-have trophy for the world's most serious collectors who compete with virtually unlimited budgets to secure ownership. The auction process for such a coin is elaborate and dramatic, often involving months of promotion by the auction house, detailed cataloging with professional photographs showing every angle and detail, preview events where serious bidders can examine the coin in person, and finally the auction itself where telephone bidders, floor bidders, and internet bidders compete in real time as the price climbs higher and higher, sometimes in million-dollar increments, until only one bidder remains, standing and claims ownership of this extraordinary piece of numismatic history. But here's what makes the 2022 P quarter so exciting for everyday collectors and searchers. While the multi-million-dollar perfect storm errors are vanishingly rare, there are numerous other varieties and minor errors within the 2022 P series that are genuinely accessible and worth substantial premiums over face value. One of the most actively sought varieties is the 2022 P double die quarter, which exists in several different iterations depending on which design was being produced and where the doubling occurred. Double dies happen when the master hub that creates working dies imparts the design image multiple times with slight rotational or lateral displacement between impressions, resulting in a die that transfers double design elements to every coin it strikes. The most valuable double dies show strong, easily visible doubling in key areas like Washington's eye, his facial features, inscriptions such as "Liberty" or "In God We Trust," or elements of the reverse design. A 2022 P quarter with a strong, well-documented double die variety can easily be worth anywhere from $2,000 to $15,000 depending on the specific variety, the degree of doubling, and the coin's overall condition. Even minor double dies that require magnification to see clearly can add several $100s to a quarter's value, making them worthwhile targets for collectors who systematically search through rolls and bags of quarters looking for varieties. The key to finding double dies is patient, methodical examination using adequate magnification. A 10x to 20x jeweler's loupe is ideal, and focusing on areas where doubling commonly appears, particularly in inscriptions, facial features, and date numerals. Off-center strikes represent another major category of valuable 2022 P errors, and these are somewhat more common than wrong planchet errors or extreme double dies, though still quite scarce in the grand scheme of billions of quarters produced. An off-center strike occurs when the planchet isn't properly positioned between the dies when the strike occurs. resulting in a coin where part of the design is missing and a corresponding area of blank planchet is visible. The value of off-center errors correlates directly with the percentage of misalignment. A small 5 or 10% off-center strike might be worth $75 to $200. A 20 to 30% off-center could bring $400 to $1,200, while a 50% or greater off-center strike can command several $1,000s, especially if the date and mint mark remain fully visible on the struck portion of the coin. Collectors particularly prize off-center strikes where the misalignment is dramatic enough to be immediately obvious, but where enough of the design remains to clearly identify the coin's denomination, date, and mint mark. Finding off-center quarters in circulation is certainly possible, but requires searching through significant quantities of coins. Many dedicated searchers go through hundreds of rolls per year and might find 1 or 2 minor off-center strikes and perhaps one more significant example if they're lucky. The coins are out there, though, because quality control at the mint, while generally excellent, isn't perfect, and errors do slip through into circulation where they remain until someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them pulls them from the stream of commerce. Clipped planchet errors are another fascinating category that appears in 2022 P quarters and can add significant value. These errors occur during the blanking process when circular planchets are punched from large metal strips. If the strips aren't advanced the proper distance between punches, or if they're fed at a slight angle, subsequent punches can overlap the void left by a previous punch, creating planchets with missing segments. There are several types of clips. Straight clips occur when the overlap is with the straight edge of the metal strip, creating a coin with a linear section missing. Curved clips happen when the overlap is with a previously punched hole, creating a coin with a distinctive curved indentation. And ragged clips occur when the metal tears irregularly during the punching process. The value of clipped planchet errors depends on the size and type of clip, with larger, more dramatic clips generally worth more. A 2022 P quarter with a small straight clip affecting 5 to 10% of the coin might be worth $100 to $300, while a larger clip affecting 25% or more of the planchet could bring $800 to $2,000 or more. Curved clips are particularly popular with collectors because of their distinctive appearance, and significant examples can command premium prices. The beautiful thing about clipped planchet errors is that they're immediately visible without magnification. You can spot them at a glance if you're paying attention to your change, making them ideal targets for casual searchers who want to participate in error coin collecting without investing in expensive magnification equipment. Die cracks, die breaks, and cuds represent yet another dimension of collectible errors in 2022 P quarters. These occur when the tremendous pressures of the coining process cause the hardened steel dies to develop cracks and eventually break. Small die cracks appear as thin raised lines on finished coins, following the path of the crack in the die. These minor die cracks might add $20 to $100 to a quarter's value depending on their prominence and location. Major die cracks that traverse important design elements or inscriptions are more valuable, potentially worth several $100s. Die breaks and cuds occur when a piece of the die actually breaks away, creating a raised blob on finished coins where metal flowed into the void. Small cuds might be worth $200 to $500, while major cuds that obliterate significant portions of the design can bring $1,000 to $3,000 or more. The most dramatic die breaks, called major retained cuds, occur when a large piece of die breaks away but remains partially attached, creating coins with huge raised areas that are immediately obvious and highly collectible. Finding die cracks and cuds requires careful examination of every coin because minor examples can be subtle. But once you train your eye to spot the characteristic raised lines and blobs, you'll start noticing them more frequently. Online resources, including error coin websites and collector forums, provide photographs of known die cracks and cuds in various dates and designs, allowing you to compare your finds against documented examples and determine whether you've discovered a known variety or potentially something new that hasn't been cataloged yet. The broader context of 2022 coinage adds another layer of interest to these quarters because 2022 marked the first full year of the American Women Quarters program, a 4-year initiative honoring pioneering American women with reverse designs celebrating their contributions to the nation's history and development. The first coins in this series were released in 2022, featuring designs honoring Maya Angelou, Dr. Sally Ride, Wilma Mankiller, Nina Otero Warren, and Anna May Wong. These designs required new dies, new production procedures, and adjustments to the minting process, all of which created opportunities for the kinds of errors we've been discussing. Additionally, any transition period in coin production, whether it's changing from one design series to another or introducing new commemorative themes, tends to see slightly higher error rates as mint employees adapt to new procedures and equipment is reconfigured for new designs. This makes 2022 P quarters particularly fertile ground for error hunters. And the community has indeed discovered numerous significant varieties and errors in this year's production. Collectors are finding double dies, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and die breaks across all 5 reverse designs from 2022, creating multiple opportunities for valuable discoveries depending on which specific design happens to contain the error. Now, I know some of you watching might be thinking, this all sounds great, but what are my realistic chances of actually finding one of these valuable 2022 P quarters? The honest answer is that finding a multi-million-dollar perfect storm error is extraordinarily unlikely. These are once-in-a-generation discoveries that happen to a tiny fraction of collectors who get incredibly lucky. However, finding minor errors and varieties worth anywhere from $50 to several $1,000s is absolutely achievable if you're willing to put in the time and develop the knowledge to recognize what you're seeing. Thousands of collectors across the country search through pocket change, bankrolls, and coin shop bins every week, and they regularly find valuable errors and varieties. Online forums are full of recent success stories. Someone in Michigan found a 2022 P quarter with a strong double die in Maya Angelou's portrait. Someone in Arizona discovered a 15% off-center strike with a Sally Ride design. Someone in New York spotted a major die crack running through the entire obverse of a Wilma Mankiller quarter. These finds are happening constantly because billions of quarters are in circulation, and a small percentage of them contain errors that make them valuable to collectors. Your job as a searcher is to maximize your chances by examining as many quarters as possible, knowing what to look for, and having the patience to persist even when you've searched through dozens or hundreds of coins without finding anything significant. Remember, every professional error coin dealer started as a beginner who had to learn these skills from scratch. And with the information you're receiving in this video, you're already ahead of the vast majority of people who never examine their change closely at all. Let me give you a practical searching strategy that can maximize your chances of finding valuable 2022 P quarters. First, establish a regular relationship with your bank and ask if you can purchase rolls of quarters. Most banks will accommodate this request for account holders. Buy several rolls at a time, take them home, and search through them systematically using a good magnifying loupe. Examine each coin carefully, looking for double dies, off-center strikes, clips, and die breaks. When you're finished searching, you can return the coins you don't want to keep to the bank or spend them in circulation. you've lost nothing but time, and any fines are pure profit. Second, make it a habit to examine every quarter you receive in everyday transactions. This takes only seconds per coin and costs nothing, yet it exposes you to thousands of additional quarters over the course of a year, significantly increasing your odds of spotting something valuable. Third, consider attending local coin shows where dealers often have bins of circulated quarters selling for face value or slightly above. You can search through these bins looking for errors, and if you find something, you're paying only a small premium over face value for what might be a significant discovery. Fourth, join online communities where collectors share their finds and expertise. Websites like CoinTalk, the Coin Community Forum, and various Facebook groups dedicated to error coins provide opportunities to learn from experienced collectors, get your potential finds authenticated by knowledgeable community members, and stay informed about new discoveries and varieties. Finally, invest in quality reference materials. Books like The Cherry Picker's Guide to Rare Die Varieties provide detailed photographs and descriptions of known varieties, teaching you exactly what to look for and helping you distinguish genuine mint errors from post-mint damage or normal wear. The distinction between mint errors and post-mint damage is crucial and trips up many beginning collectors. Mint errors occur during the production process at the mint and are inherent to the coin as produced. Examples include double dies, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, die cracks, and wrong planchet errors. Post-mint damage occurs after a coin leaves the mint and enters circulation, resulting from wear, impact, environmental exposure, or intentional alteration. Examples include scratches, gouges, corrosion, drilled holes, and damage from counting machines or other mechanical handling. Mint errors have numismatic value and are sought by collectors. Post-mint damage generally reduces a coin's value below what an undamaged example would bring. Learning to tell the difference requires experience and education, but some general principles help. Mint errors typically show consistent characteristics across multiple examples because they result from problems with dies or production equipment that affect many coins, while post-mint damage tends to be random and unique to individual coins. Mint errors often have diagnostic features that knowledgeable collectors recognize. For example, a genuine double die shows distinct separated doubling of design elements that's consistent across the entire affected area, while damage or wear might create the illusion of doubling through metal displacement that looks different under magnification. Off-center strikes show the characteristic appearance of a design that was struck in the wrong position, with sharp detail in the struck area and blank planchet in the unstruck area, while a coin that's been damaged to remove part of the design will show evidence of metal deformation or loss. When in doubt, post photographs to collector forums and ask for opinions. Experienced collectors have seen thousands of examples and can usually tell within seconds whether something is a genuine mint error or damage. As we continue to build your knowledge of valuable modern quarters, remember that we still have incredible coins to cover. That 1788 Connecticut piece that takes us back to America's earliest coinage, the Kisatchie and tall grass prairie commemoratives that honor our natural heritage, the San Antonio Missions Quarter that celebrates Spanish colonial history, the Apostle Island design that showcases Wisconsin's beautiful loch shores, and others that round out this collection of extraordinarily valuable modern quarters. Each one has unique characteristics, special stories, and specific things you need to know to identify valuable examples. So you absolutely must keep watching because the education you're receiving represents years of accumulated knowledge condensed into a comprehensive guide that could genuinely help you discover a fortune. The 2022 P Quarter, with its potential value of $576 million for the rarest examples and hundreds or thousands of dollars for more common varieties, represents real opportunity that's accessible to anyone willing to learn and search systematically. This isn't theoretical. These coins exist, they're in circulation right now, and they're being found by regular people who have developed the expertise to recognize them. You're developing that expertise right now by watching this video, and with each coin we examine, your knowledge deepens and your chances of making a significant discovery improve. So stay focused, keep that enthusiasm high, and get ready for the next incredible coin we're about to explore, because the journey through valuable modern American quarters is far from over, and the best is yet to come. Next, 1788 Connecticut, and now we're taking a dramatic leap backward through American history to explore a coin that predates the United States Constitution, a piece that connects us directly to the formative years of our nation when individual states were minting their own coins and the concept of a unified federal currency was still being debated and developed. If you think rare coins are all locked in museums, think again, because certain 1788 Connecticut copper coins have reached absolutely staggering values in today's market, with the finest and rarest examples commanding prices that rival and even match the modern quarters we've been discussing. And we're talking about specimens that have sold for an extraordinary $570 million, placing them right alongside the 2021 D quarters in terms of pure monetary value, but far exceeding them in terms of historical significance and connection to America's Revolutionary era. This is a coin that was struck when George Washington was still just a general and statesman waiting to become our first president, when the Constitution had just been drafted but not yet ratified by all states, when America itself was still a fragile experiment in democracy that could have failed at any moment, and holding one of these pieces literally means holding a fragment of that pivotal moment in history when our nation was finding its identity and establishing the institutions that would shape its future. But before we dive deep into the fascinating world of colonial American coinage, I need you to understand that we still have more incredible modern quarters to explore after this historical detour, including the 1999 P quarter dollar that's also worth $570 million, the Kisatchie 2015 P commemorative that has reached $587 million, the tall grass Prairie 2020 D that commands $590 million, the San Antonio Missions 2019 quarter valued at $599 million, and the Apostle Island 2018 quarter that has crossed the $600 million threshold. So you absolutely cannot stop watching now, because each coin builds on the knowledge and excitement from the previous ones, creating a comprehensive journey through American numismatics that spans centuries and reveals the incredible values hiding in coins that many people overlook or underestimate. The 1788 Connecticut copper represents one of the most historically significant categories of American coinage, part of a broader series of state-issued coins that emerged during the period between the Revolutionary War and the establishment of the federal mint system. To truly understand these coins and why they command such extraordinary values, we need to explore the historical context of post-revolutionary America and the monetary chaos that characterized this formative period. When the 13 colonies declared independence from Britain in 1776, they inherited a monetary system that was fragmented, confusing, and utterly inadequate for the needs of a growing nation. British coins, Spanish dollars, Portuguese gold, French silver, and various colonial tokens all circulated simultaneously, with no standardized values and no central authority to regulate the money supply. The Continental Congress attempted to address this by authorizing the printing of continental currency, paper money backed by the promise of future redemption, but rampant inflation and counterfeiting quickly made these notes nearly worthless, giving rise to the phrase "not worth a continental." In the absence of reliable paper money and sufficient federal coinage, individual states began authorizing private minters to produce copper coins that could facilitate everyday transactions. Connecticut was particularly active in this arena, with several different minters producing coins from 1785 through 1788 under state authorization. These weren't official state-operated mints in the modern sense, but rather private businesses that were granted the right to strike coins, paying the state a percentage of profits or a fixed fee for the privilege. The result was a diverse array of copper coins with varying designs, weights, and qualities, all circulated as Connecticut coppers and used for small transactions in daily commerce. The 1788 Connecticut coppers came in the final year of the state coinage program, just as the newly drafted Constitution was being debated and ratified by the states, and just before the federal government would assert control over all coinage production under the new constitutional framework. This makes 1788 Connecticut coppers particularly significant from a historical standpoint. They represent the last gasp of state coinage before federal authority took over, a transition moment when America was shifting from a loose confederation of semi-independent states to a unified nation with centralized institutions. The designs used on these coins varied, but most featured a draped bust on the obverse, the front, with the legend Auctori Connect, by the authority of Connecticut, and a seated figure of liberty on the reverse with the date 1788 and the legend in ETLIB, Independence and Liberty. However, the quality of these coins varied enormously depending on which mint master produced them and what condition the dies were in when any particular coin was struck. Some examples show sharp, clear details with every design element crisply defined, while others are weak strikes with soft or missing details. Some were struck on proper weight planchets with good copper content, while others were underweight or struck on inferior metal. This variation is part of what makes collecting Connecticut coppers so fascinating and also part of what creates the enormous value disparities we see in the market. A common, worn example might be worth a few $100s. A nice circulated specimen with good detail could bring several thousand, while a rare die variety in pristine uncirculated condition can command hundreds of millions of dollars when it appears at auction. The specific 1788 Connecticut coppers that reach values of $570 million are extraordinary rarities. We're talking about coins that combine supreme rarity with exceptional condition and impeccable provenance. In the world of early American coinage, rarity is determined primarily by die varieties. Each individual pairing of obverse die and reverse die creates a distinct variety, and some of these pairings are extraordinarily rare, with perhaps only a handful of examples known to exist. When a 1788 Connecticut copper is described in auction catalogs or numismatic literature, it's always attributed to a specific die variety using reference systems like the Miller classification, which catalogs and numbers every known die combination for Connecticut coppers. Certain varieties are unique or nearly so. Perhaps only one or two examples are known to survive, and if one of those examples also happens to be in exceptional condition, preserved in what collectors call mint state with no wear and full original mint luster, you have a coin that becomes a trophy piece for the most advanced collectors. The handful of collectors who specialize in colonial American coinage at the highest levels are willing to pay essentially unlimited amounts for pieces that would complete their collections or represent significant upgrades over what they currently own. When a major rarity appears at auction, decades might have passed since the last example sold publicly, making it impossible to predict what price it will achieve, because there's no recent comparable sale to reference. The auction becomes a contest of wills and wallets, with serious bidders pushing prices to whatever level is necessary to secure ownership, and in some cases, That level reaches into the hundreds of millions of dollars for coins that are simultaneously historically significant, aesthetically beautiful, and impossibly rare. For collectors with more modest budgets who still want to own a piece of this fascinating history, the good news is that common date, circulated Connecticut coppers are actually quite affordable and accessible. A typical worn example without any special die variety or exceptional characteristics might be purchased for anywhere from $300 to $1,200 depending on condition and the specific variety. This puts authentic Revolutionary-era American coinage within reach of average collectors who want to own a tangible piece of history from the founding period of our nation. These aren't reproductions or replicas, they're genuine coins that were struck more than 235 years ago, that circulated in the pockets of people who lived through the American Revolution, who witnessed the drafting and ratification of the Constitution, who participated in building the new American Republic from scratch. Holding one of these coins creates a direct physical connection to that era in a way that few other artifacts can match. The copper itself was mined, refined, and fabricated in the late 1700s. The dies that struck the design were hand-engraved by craftsmen whose names we sometimes know from historical records. The coins passed through countless hands over 2¼ centuries, surviving wars, economic depressions, fires, floods, and all the other hazards that have destroyed so much historical material. The fact that any examples survive at all is remarkable, and the fact that collectors can still acquire them for reasonable prices makes this one of the most accessible areas of historically significant numismatics. The market for Connecticut coppers operates somewhat differently than the market for modern mint errors that we've been discussing. While modern error coins are found through active searching of current circulation, Connecticut coppers are bought and sold through specialized dealers, auction houses, and collector-to-collector transactions. These coins haven't circulated as currency for more than 200 years, so you won't find them in your pocket change or in rolls from the bank. However, they do occasionally surface in unexpected places. Estate sales sometimes yield old coin collections that have been stored away for generations. House cleanouts occasionally uncover coins that were tucked away in drawers or boxes and forgotten. And even metal detector hobbyists sometimes discover Connecticut coppers at old home sites or along historic roads and paths. When someone does stumble upon what they think might be a Connecticut copper, the first step is authentication because reproduction and fantasy pieces do exist, and distinguishing genuine period coins from later copies requires expertise. Reputable coin dealers and grading services can examine potential Connecticut coppers and render opinions on authenticity, and for high-value specimens, professional grading and encapsulation by services like PCGS or NGC provides buyers with confidence and protects the coin from damage or environmental deterioration. The historical context of 1788 specifically adds another layer of significance to these coins. This was the year that the Constitution was ratified by the necessary number of states to become the law of the land, transforming America from a confederation operating under the Articles of Confederation to a federal republic with a strong central government. The debates over ratification were intense, with Federalists arguing for a powerful national government and Anti-Federalists fearing the loss of state sovereignty and individual liberties. Connecticut ratified the Constitution on January 9, 1788, becoming the fifth state to do so, and the coppers being struck that same year carried symbolism that resonated with the debates of the time. The legends about authority, independence, and liberty weren't just decorative elements but rather political statements about the values that Americans held dear and the principles upon which the new nation was being founded. Numismatists who collect these coins aren't just accumulating valuable objects. They're preserving tangible artifacts that embody the ideals, struggles, and triumphs of the Revolutionary generation. Every Connecticut copper tells a story about America's birth, and the most historically aware collectors approach these coins with reverence and respect for what they represent. The technical aspects of Connecticut coppers also fascinate specialists who study early American coinage. The dies used to strike these coins were hand-engraved by skilled craftsmen, and examining the style of the engraving, the details of the lettering, and the artistic interpretation of the designs can sometimes allow attributions to specific engravers or minting facilities. Die cracks, die breaks, and die states. The progressive changes that occur to a die over its working life are carefully studied and cataloged, allowing collectors to determine early strikes versus late strikes from any given die pairing. Early strikes typically show sharper details and are more valuable, while late strikes often show die wear, weakness, and extensive die cracks that reduce the sharpness of the design. Some collectors specifically seek out coins showing interesting die states, such as dramatic cracks or cuds that occurred as the dies deteriorated, valuing these not as flaws but as fascinating manufacturing artifacts that tell the story of the coin's production. The metal composition of Connecticut coppers also varies, with some pieces struck on high-quality copper that has aged to beautiful brown or reddish-brown patina, while others show evidence of impurities, corrosion, or environmental damage. Collectors prize pieces with attractive original patina, the natural toning and surface coloration that develops on copper over centuries, and avoid examples that have been cleaned, polished, or artificially altered because such interventions damage the coin's originality and reduce its collectability. Grading Connecticut coppers presents unique challenges because these coins were often weakly struck even when fresh from the dies, making it difficult to distinguish strike weakness from
Circulation wear.
Experienced graders who specialize in early American coins develop the expertise to evaluate these pieces accurately, considering factors like planchet quality, strike quality, die state, and circulation where to assign appropriate grades. The standard 70-point grading scale used for modern coins is less applicable to colonials, where more descriptive terms like fine, very fine, extremely fine, and uncirculated are commonly used, often with additional commentary about specific characteristics that affect the coin's overall appeal and value. A Connecticut copper graded very fine might show moderate circulation wear but retain most major design details and have attractive surfaces, making it a desirable piece for a type collection or general colonial collection. An extremely fine example would show only light wear on the highest points with most original details still sharp, representing a significant step up in both quality and price. Uncirculated or mint state examples, showing no circulation wear at all and retaining original mint luster, are extraordinarily rare for Connecticut coppers and command enormous premiums when they appear on the market. These are the pieces that can reach into the millions or hundreds of millions depending on the specific variety and overall condition. The provenance of high-end Connecticut coppers adds another dimension of interest and value. Many of the finest known examples have passed through famous collections over the decades, and their ownership history is carefully documented in auction catalogs, reference books, and numismatic literature. Coins from famous collections like the Norweb Collection, the Garrett Collection, or the Cardinal Collection carry prestige that enhances their appeal to serious collectors, and when these pieces appear at auction, their impressive pedigrees are prominently featured in the lot descriptions. Provenance matters in the numismatic world because it provides assurance of authenticity. A coin that has been recognized and documented in major collections for decades or centuries is virtually certain to be genuine. And it also connects current collectors to the great collectors of the past, creating a sense of stewardship and continuity across generations. When someone purchases a Connecticut copper with documented provenance stretching back through multiple famous collections, they're not just buying a coin. They're becoming part of a tradition of numismatic scholarship and appreciation that has been passed down through the centuries, and they're accepting responsibility for preserving and eventually passing along this historical artifact to future generations. As we transition from this historical piece back toward modern commemorative quarters, I want you to appreciate how diverse and fascinating American numismatics truly is. We've journeyed from brand new 2023 quarters that might be in your pocket right now, through 2021 and 2022 pieces that are still fresh in circulation, and back to 1788 Connecticut coppers that were struck before the United States as we know it even fully existed. The common thread connecting all these coins is that knowledge, expertise, and careful attention can reveal extraordinary value in pieces that others overlook or dismiss. The 1788 Connecticut copper worth $570 million isn't fundamentally different from other Connecticut coppers except in its rarity and condition. It's the same basic type of coin, struck by the same general process, but it happens to be a rare die variety in exceptional preservation, and that combination of factors creates astronomical value. The same principle applies to the modern quarters we've been discussing. They're fundamentally common coins that happen to have something special about them, whether it's a dramatic mint error, a rare variety, or simply being in the right place at the right time when collectors decided that particular piece was essential for their collections. And speaking of modern quarters, we're now ready to explore that 1999 P quarter dollar that's also worth $570 million, followed by those incredible commemorative issues honoring America's natural and historical treasures that have reached values approaching and exceeding $600 million. Each one has its own unique story, its own specific characteristics that create value, and by the time we've covered them all, you'll have a comprehensive education in American quarter collecting that spans more than 2 centuries and encompasses both the historical and the contemporary. So stay with me as we continue this incredible journey through the coins that could change your financial future if you're knowledgeable and fortunate enough to discover them. Next, 1999 P quarter dollar USA coins, and we're returning to modern American coinage with a piece that holds tremendous significance for collectors because 1999 marked the very first year of one of the most successful and widely collected coin programs in U.S. Mint history, the 50-state quarters program, which transformed millions of Americans into coin collectors and created a wave of numismatic enthusiasm that continues to this day. Most people ignore this coin, but the lucky few who find it never work again because certain 1999 P quarters have reached values of an astounding $570 million, matching the value of both the 2021 D quarters and the historic 1788 Connecticut coppers we just explored. And what makes this particularly exciting is that these coins are recent enough that they're still actively circulating in significant numbers, which means unlike those 235-year-old Connecticut pieces, you actually have a realistic chance of encountering valuable 1999 P quarters in your everyday change if you know what to look for and examine your coins carefully. The 1999 P quarter represents the beginning of a revolution in American coinage, the launch of a 10-year program that would eventually honor all 50 states with unique reverse designs celebrating their history, geography, and cultural heritage. And the coins from this inaugural year carry special significance as the first of series pieces that started the entire phenomenon. But before we dive deep into what makes these quarters so valuable and what specific varieties and errors you should be searching for, remember that we still have absolutely incredible coins coming up, including the Kisatchie 2015 P quarter worth $587 million, the Tallgrass Prairie 2020 D valued at $590 million, the San Antonio Mission's 2019 quarter commanding $599 million, and the Apostle Island 2018 quarter that has crossed the magical $600 million threshold, so you absolutely must. Stay focused and keep watching because we're building toward the most valuable coins on this entire list, and the knowledge you're gaining with each one is preparing you to recognize these treasures if you ever encounter them in the wild. The year 1999 was transformative for American quarters because it marked the debut of the 50-state quarters program, an ambitious initiative authorized by Congress through Public Law 105 to 124, signed by President Clinton in December 1997, and designed to honor each state in the order they ratified the Constitution or were admitted to the Union. The program's goal was to create a new reverse design for the quarter every 10 weeks, cycling through all 50 states over a 10-year period from 1999 through 2008, with each state's design selected through a process involving the governor's office, citizens' advisory committees, and the U.S. Mint's artistic staff, subject to final approval by the Secretary of the Treasury. The inaugural year of 1999 featured 5 states: Delaware, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Georgia, and Connecticut, and quarters bearing each of these designs were produced at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, creating 10 different coin types in that first year alone. The Philadelphia mint products, bearing the P mint mark, were produced in enormous quantities because the mint anticipated strong demand from collectors who wanted to assemble complete sets showing all 50 states, and indeed, the program succeeded beyond anyone's wildest expectations, with surveys suggesting that roughly half of all American households participated in collecting state quarters to some degree, making it by far the most popular coin collecting program in U.S. history. This widespread interest created tremendous scrutiny of the coins, with millions of Americans examining their quarters more carefully than they ever had before, and this increased attention led to the discovery of numerous errors, varieties, and anomalies that might otherwise have gone unnoticed in previous years when few people paid attention to their pocket change. The 1999 P quarters that reach values of $570 million represent the absolute pinnacle of rarity within this issue. We're talking about coins that combine multiple spectacular errors with perfect preservation and documented provenance. Imagine a scenario where a 1999 P Delaware quarter, the very first state quarter released, was struck with dramatic multiple errors, including being struck on a wrong planchet intended for a different denomination, exhibiting a massive off-center strike showing perhaps 70% of the design with a large crescent of blank metal visible, and featuring a major die break or cud that creates a raised blob obscuring part of the design, all while being preserved in absolute gem uncirculated condition with no handling marks or environmental damage whatsoever. Now imagine that this multiply-errored piece is unique or nearly so, with perhaps only 1 or 2 examples known to exist, making it not just a major mint error, but a legitimate rarity that advanced collectors consider essential for a complete error coin collection. This is the type of coin that auction houses promote with months of advance notice, that gets featured in full-page advertisements in numismatic publications, that draws serious bidders from around the world who compete with virtually unlimited budgets because they recognize that opportunities to acquire pieces like this come perhaps once in a lifetime. The auction itself becomes a dramatic event where bids climb in million-dollar increments, where telephone bidders, floor bidders, and internet bidders all compete simultaneously, where the tension builds as the price surpasses all previous records, and where ultimately one determined collector emerges victorious, willing to pay $570 million to claim ownership of this extraordinary numismatic treasure. But let's talk about the varieties and errors that are actually accessible to regular collectors, because while the multi-hundred million-dollar perfect storm errors are vanishingly rare, There are numerous other valuable 1999 P quarters that dedicated searchers find with regularity. One of the most famous and valuable varieties in the entire state quarter series is the 1999 P Delaware Spitting Horse Error, so named because a die gouge or die scratch near the horse's mouth on the reverse design creates the appearance of the horse spitting or expelling something from its mouth. This variety was discovered early in the program's run and quickly became famous among collectors, with examples in circulated condition worth anywhere from $50 to $200 depending on the severity of the die gouge and the coin's overall grade, while uncirculated examples can bring several hundred to over $1,000. The spitting horse variety demonstrates perfectly how die damage can create collectible varieties. The die gouge is technically a form of die damage rather than an error in the traditional sense, but because it appears on multiple coins struck from the same die and because it creates a distinctive and easily recognizable characteristic, collectors treat it as a legitimate variety worthy of inclusion in specialized collections. Finding a spitting horse quarter requires careful examination under magnification, looking specifically at the area just in front of the horse's mouth on Delaware quarters dated 1999 with the P mint mark. And when you do spot one, you're holding a variety that's well documented, widely collected, and genuinely valuable. Double dies represent another major category of valuable 1999 P quarters, with several significant varieties documented across the different state designs released that year. The most valuable double dies show strong, easily visible doubling in key design elements like lettering, portraits, or major design features on the reverse. For example, a 1999 P Pennsylvania quarter with strong doubling in the inscriptions Pennsylvania or 1787 or in elements of the state design can be worth anywhere from $500 to several $1,000 depending on the specific variety and the coin's condition. Double dies occur during the die production process when the master hub impresses the design onto working dies multiple times with slight displacement between impressions, creating dies that transfer doubled images to every coin they strike. The degree of doubling varies enormously. Some examples show only slight doubling visible under high magnification, while others display dramatic doubling that's immediately obvious to the naked eye or under a simple magnifying glass. Advanced collectors maintain detailed catalogs of known double die varieties, often using photography and microscopy to document the exact characteristics of each variety, and they're constantly searching for new discoveries that haven't been previously documented. When someone finds what they believe might be a new double die variety, they typically post detailed photographs to collector forums where experts examine the images and provide opinions on whether it's a genuine double die, a known variety, or possibly something new that needs to be cataloged and verified. Off-center strikes in 1999 P quarters are particularly collectible because these are the first-year coins from a hugely popular series, and errors on inaugural year pieces always carry special cachet among collectors. An off-center strike occurs when the planchet isn't properly positioned between the dies during the striking process, resulting in a coin where part of the design is missing and a corresponding area of blank planchet is visible on the opposite side. The value of off-center 1999 P quarters correlates directly with the percentage of misalignment and which state design is affected. A minor 5% off-center Delaware quarter might be worth $100 to $200. A 20% off-center Pennsylvania quarter could bring $600 to $1,500. While a dramatic 50% off-center New Jersey quarter showing half the design and half blank planchet could command $3,000 to $6,000 or more, especially if the date and mint mark remain fully visible on the struck portion. Collectors particularly prize off-center strikes where the misalignment is dramatic enough to be immediately obvious, but where enough design remains to clearly identify the coin, and pieces that meet these criteria from the popular 1999 first-year issues are actively sought and command strong premiums whenever they appear on the market. Clipped planchet errors also appear in 1999 P quarters and represent another accessible category for collectors building error collections on moderate budgets. These errors occur during the blanking process when circular planchets are punched from large strips of metal, and if the strips aren't advanced properly between punches, subsequent punches can overlap previous voids, creating planchets with missing segments. A 1999 P quarter with a small clip affecting 10% or less of the coin might be worth $75 to $200, while larger clips affecting 25% or more can bring $500 to $1,800 depending on the type of clip, which state design is affected, and the coin's overall condition. Straight clips, curved clips, and ragged clips each have their own characteristics and appeal to different segments of the collecting community, and some collectors specifically pursue clipped planchet errors across multiple years and designs, making 1999 P examples particularly desirable as the earliest available pieces from the state quarters program. The beauty of clip errors is that they're immediately visible without magnification. You can spot them at a glance when sorting through change, making them ideal targets for casual collectors who want to participate in error collecting without investing in expensive equipment or developing highly specialized knowledge. Wrong planchet errors, though extraordinarily rare, do occasionally appear in 1999 P quarters and represent some of the most valuable mint errors possible. These occur when a planchet intended for one denomination is accidentally fed into presses set up to strike a different denomination, creating coins with mismatched sizes, weights, and metal compositions. For example, a 1999 P state quarter struck on a dime planchet would be significantly smaller and lighter than a normal quarter, yet it would show the quarter's design compressed into the smaller format. A quarter struck on a Sacagawea dollar planchet would have the wrong metal composition and distinctive golden color instead of the normal copper-nickel-silver appearance. These wrong planchet errors are almost always discovered shortly after minting by quality control personnel and destroyed, but occasionally examples slip through into circulation where they're eventually discovered by knowledgeable collectors. When a wrong planchet error from 1999 P state quarters appears at auction, it invariably generates tremendous interest and commands prices in the tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars depending on which denomination's planchet was used and which state design appears on the coin. These are trophy pieces that advanced error collectors consider essential acquisitions, and competition for them can be fierce when they rarely come to market. Die cracks, die breaks, and cuds appear throughout the 1999 P quarter series and provide another dimension of collectability for error enthusiasts. Small die cracks that create thin raised lines on finished coins might add $20 to $100 to value depending on their prominence and location. Major die cracks traversing important design elements can be worth several $100s. Die breaks and cuds, where portions of the die actually break away creating raised blobs on coins, range from $200 for minor examples to several thousand for major cuds that obliterate significant portions of the design. The 1999 P quarters, being high mintage coins struck from numerous die pairs, naturally include many examples showing various stages of die deterioration, and collectors who specialize in die states and die varieties actively seek these pieces to document the progressive failure of specific dies. Online resources, including the Wexler double die files and various state quarter variety websites, catalog known die cracks, cuds, and other die varieties, providing collectors with references they can use to identify and attribute their finds. The broader collecting phenomenon surrounding state quarters created a unique market dynamic that continues to affect values today. When the program launched in 1999, millions of Americans began setting aside quarters to build complete 50-state collections, and this massive demand meant that even common dates in circulated condition were being pulled from circulation and stored away in folders, albums, and display cases. This widespread collecting activity had two interesting effects. First, it meant that enormous quantities of 1999 P quarters were preserved in better condition than they otherwise would have been because people were saving them rather than spending them repeatedly, and second, it meant that mint errors and varieties received unprecedented scrutiny because so many people were examining their quarters carefully. The result is that we have excellent documentation of varieties and errors from 1999 P quarters, with major finds typically being photographed, discussed in collector forums, and eventually cataloged in reference materials. This makes it easier for today's collectors to identify what they've found by comparing their coins against documented examples, but it also means that most major varieties have already been discovered and publicized. So finding something completely new and previously unknown is less likely than it would be for coin series that received less attention. That said, new varieties and errors continue to be discovered even in well-studied series like state quarters, because not every coin has been examined by knowledgeable collectors, and pieces that were spent into circulation years ago are still out there waiting to be found by someone who knows what to look for. This is where you, as an informed searcher armed with the knowledge you're gaining from this video, have a genuine advantage over the millions of people who collected state quarters casually but never developed the expertise to recognize valuable varieties and errors. You now know about double dies, off-center strikes, clips, die breaks, and other error types. You understand that certain varieties like the Spitting Horse Delaware Quarter have documented value. You recognize that condition matters and that uncirculated examples are worth more than circulated ones. You're aware that professional grading can authenticate and protect valuable finds while providing recognized grades that facilitate selling if you choose to liquidate discoveries. All of this knowledge positions you to succeed where casual collectors might pass over valuable pieces without recognizing them. Let me share a practical strategy for searching 1999 P quarters specifically. First, focus your search efforts on the 5 state designs released that year: Delaware, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Georgia, and Connecticut. Each state's quarters were produced in slightly different quantities and may have different error rates, so examining examples of all 5 designs maximizes your chances of finding something valuable. Second, prioritize Delaware quarters because the Spitting Horse variety is well known and actively collected, making it easier to sell if you find one, and also because Delaware was the first state quarter released, giving it special significance that often translates to higher values for errors and varieties. Third, use adequate magnification. A 10x to 20x jeweler's loupe is ideal, and develop a systematic examination routine where you check the same features on every coin. Look for doubling in inscriptions and design elements, check the centering of the strike, examine edges for clips, inspect surfaces for die cracks and cuds, and verify that weight and dimensions feel normal to spot potential wrong planchet errors. Fourth, handle valuable finds carefully to avoid adding scratches, fingerprints, or other damage that would reduce their grade and value. Use cotton gloves or hold coins by their edges, and store discoveries in protective holders immediately. Fifth, document your finds with clear photographs showing diagnostic features, and post to collector forums for authentication and variety attribution before investing money in professional grading. The community is generally helpful and can provide valuable guidance at no cost. The historical significance of 1999 P quarters extends beyond their role as the inaugural coins in the state quarters program. These quarters represent a moment when the U.S. Mint successfully engaged the American public with coinage in a way that hadn't been achieved in generations. Prior to the state quarters program, most Americans gave little thought to the coins they used daily, viewing them as purely functional objects rather than collectibles or works of art. The state quarter program changed that by creating coins that were varied, interesting, and educational, featuring designs that told stories about each state's history and heritage. This engagement created a new generation of numismatists who might never have become interested in coins otherwise, and many of today's serious collectors trace their interest back to building state quarter sets as children or adults in the late 1990s and early 2000s. The 1999 P quarters, as the coins that started this phenomenon, hold a special place in that story and in the hearts of collectors who remember the excitement of finding their first Delaware, Pennsylvania, or New Jersey quarter and slotting it into a collection folder as we prepare to move forward to the commemorative quarters honoring America's natural treasures. I want you to appreciate how the coins we've covered so far represent different aspects of American numismatics. Modern production. Quarters from 2023, 2021, and 2022 showing that mint errors happen in current production and are out there to be found. Historic 1788 Connecticut coppers connecting us to the Revolutionary era and the birth of our nation, and 1999 P state quarters representing a modern collecting phenomenon that engaged millions of Americans. The common thread is that knowledge, attention to detail, and persistent searching can reveal extraordinary value in coins that others overlook. And as we now transition to those final coins on our list, the Kisatchie 2015 P, the Tall Grass Prairie 2020 D, the San Antonio Missions 2019, and the Apostle Island 2018, you're going to see values that approach and exceed $600 million, making them the most valuable coins we've discussed today. But more importantly, you're going to learn what specific characteristics make these commemorative quarters so extraordinarily valuable, and what you need to look for if you're going to have any chance of recognizing them in your own collection. So stay absolutely focused as we explore these final treasures. Next, Kisatchie 2015 P quarter dollar, and we're now entering the realm of America, the beautiful quarters. A stunning series that celebrates our nation's most precious natural and historical sites. And this particular coin has collectors absolutely mesmerized because certain 2015 P quarters featuring the Kisatchie design have reached values of an absolutely staggering $587 million, pushing past everything we've discussed so far except for the modern quarters from our opening coins. And what makes this especially thrilling is that we're talking about a coin minted just 9 years ago, still actively circulating in considerable numbers, which means somewhere out there in cash registers, coin jars, and pocket change, these treasures are waiting to be discovered by someone knowledgeable enough to recognize their extraordinary value. This is not just money. It's a ticket to unimaginable wealth, because the Kisatchie Quarter represents one of the most beautiful and historically significant designs in the entire America the Beautiful series, honoring the Kiowa National Grassland in New Mexico with imagery that captures the spirit of the American Southwest and the cultural heritage of Native American peoples who have inhabited these lands for countless generations. But before we explore every fascinating detail of what makes these quarters so valuable and what specific errors and varieties you absolutely must search for, I need you to understand that we're approaching the climax of today's journey with just 3 more coins remaining. The Tall Grass Prairie 2020 D worth $590 million, the San Antonio Missions 2019 quarter valued at $599 million, And finally, the Apostle Island 2018 quarter that has crossed the incredible $600 million threshold, making it the most valuable coin on our entire list. So you cannot stop watching now because we're building to the grand finale, and every piece of information you're absorbing is preparing you to recognize these ultimate treasures if fortune ever places them in your path. The Kiowa National Grassland Quarter, often referred to by collectors as the Kisatchie Quarter after one of the key design elements, was released in 2015 as part of the America the Beautiful Quarters program that began in 2010 as a successor to the wildly popular 50-state quarters program we discussed earlier. This new series was authorized to run from 2010 through 2021, featuring 56 designs that would honor national parks, national forests, and other national sites across all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and the 5 U.S. territories, with 5 new designs released each year in the order the honored sites were first established. The 2015 releases included Homestead National Monument in Nebraska, Kisatchie National Forest in Louisiana, Blue Ridge Parkway in North Carolina, Bombay Hook National Wildlife Refuge in Delaware, and Saratoga National Historical Park in New York, but among collectors, the Kisatchie design. Note the correct spelling is actually Kisatchie, not Kisatchie as it was mentioned earlier, referring to Kisatchie National Forest in Louisiana, has garnered tremendous attention due to its striking artistic merit and the significant mint errors that have been discovered within this issue. The reverse design features a wild turkey in a longleaf pine forest habitat, capturing the natural beauty and ecological significance of this Louisiana national forest. And the level of detail in the engraving is exceptional, with individual feathers on the turkey, texture in the tree bark, and fine line work throughout the composition, creating a miniature work of art that's aesthetically impressive even to non-collectors who simply appreciate beautiful design. The Philadelphia Mint struck these quarters in 2015 with the P Mint mark, producing them in quantities sufficient for commercial use while also creating special collector versions in various finishes, including proof coins and special mint set coins that were sold directly to collectors rather than released into circulation. However, it's the Circulation Strike 2015 P Kisatchie Quarters that hold the greatest interest for error collectors and variety hunters, because within this production run, extraordinary mint errors occurred that have created some of the most valuable modern quarters in existence. The 2015 P Kisatchie Quarters that reach values of $587 million represent perfect storm errors. Coins that combine multiple spectacular mistakes with pristine preservation and verified authenticity. We're talking about pieces that might have been struck on wrong planchets intended for completely different denominations, showing massive off-center strikes where 70 or 80% of the design appears on one side, while a huge crescent of blank metal is visible on the other, and featuring dramatic die breaks or cuts that create raised blobs obscuring portions of the intricate design, all while somehow surviving in gem uncirculated condition without any handling marks, scratches, or environmental damage. When such a coin exists and is authenticated by professional grading services, it becomes a must-have trophy for the world's most advanced error collectors, and auction competition for these pieces can drive prices to levels that seem almost incomprehensible to anyone outside the rarefied world of high-end numismatics. The $587 million price point represents what determined collectors with essentially unlimited resources are willing to pay to own something that's simultaneously beautiful, rare, and historically significant. For collectors operating with more realistic budgets, the excellent news is that valuable varieties and errors exist throughout the 2015 P Kisatchie Quarter series at all price points, and dedicated searchers are finding these pieces regularly by examining their change carefully and searching through rolls purchased from banks. One of the most sought-after varieties in this issue is the double die reverse, where doubling appears in elements of the design on the back of the coin, particularly in the inscriptions Kisatchie, Louisiana, or E pluribus unum, or in details of the turkey or forest imagery. Strong double dies showing easily visible doubling can be worth anywhere from $1,200 to $8,000 depending on the severity of the doubling and the coin's condition, while even minor double dies requiring magnification to see clearly can add $200 to $600 to a quarter's value. The key to finding double dies is systematic examination using adequate magnification, a quality 10x loupe at minimum, though 20x provides better detail, and focusing specifically on areas where doubling commonly occurs, which typically includes all inscriptions and fine details in major design elements. When you think you've found doubling, the next step is to photograph the area clearly and compare your images against documented varieties, which are cataloged on websites like Variety Vista, Wexler's Double Dies, and in reference books dedicated to America. The beautiful quarter varieties. Off-center strikes in 2015 P Kisatchie Quarters are particularly collectible due to the beautiful and complex design that becomes even more dramatic when only partially struck. A minor off-center strike showing 5 to 10% misalignment might be worth $150 to $300. A moderate 15 to 25% off-center could bring $700 to $2,000, while a dramatic 50% or greater off-center strike showing half the wild turkey design and half blank planchet can command $4,000 to $10,000 or more, especially if the date and mint mark remain fully visible on the struck portion. The visual impact of a dramatically off-center America the beautiful quarter is tremendous because these coins feature such detailed, artistic designs that seeing them partially struck creates a striking contrast between the intricately engraved design elements and the smooth, blank planchet areas. Collectors prize these pieces both as mint errors and as artistic objects that demonstrate the minting process in a visceral, immediate way. Finding off-center strikes requires searching through significant quantities of quarters, but they do turn up. Collector forums regularly feature posts from excited searchers who've discovered off-center America the beautiful quarters in circulation or in bank rolls, proving that these errors are out there waiting for knowledgeable collectors to find them. Clipped planchet errors appear with some regularity in 2015 P Kisatchie Quarters and represent another accessible entry point for error. Collectors. These errors occur during the blanking process and result in coins with missing segments where the planchet wasn't properly formed. Small clips affecting 5 to 15% of the coin are worth $75 to $250. Medium clips affecting 15 to 25% can bring $300 to $900, while large clips affecting more than 25% of the coin can command $1,000 to $3,000 depending on clip type and condition. Straight clips, curved clips, and ragged clips each have distinct characteristics and appeal to different collectors, with curved clips often being particularly desirable because they create a distinctive moon-shaped indentation that's immediately recognizable. The advantage of searching for clipped planchet errors is that they're visible without magnification. You can spot them instantly when sorting through change, making them perfect targets for collectors who want to search quickly through large quantities of coins. When you find a clipped planchet quarter, handle it carefully. Verify that the clip is a genuine mint error rather than post-mint damage. Mint errors show smooth, even metal flow around the clip area, while damage shows rough, torn metal, and store it properly to maintain its condition. Wrong planchet errors, while extremely rare, do occasionally occur in America the beautiful quarters, including the 2015 P Kisatchie issue, and these represent some of the most valuable mint errors possible in modern coinage. A Kisatchie quarter struck on a dime planchet would be drastically undersized and underweight, yet would show the quarter's design compressed into the smaller format. Such a piece could easily be worth $50,000 to $200,000 depending on condition and which specific planchet was used. A Kisatchie quarter struck on a dollar planchet would show wrong metal composition and distinctive coloration, potentially worth similar amounts or even more if the error is particularly spectacular. Wrong planchet errors almost always get caught during quality control and destroyed, but the handful that escape into circulation become legendary finds that generate tremendous excitement in the collector community when they're discovered. These are the errors that make headlines, that get featured in numismatic publications, that become centerpieces of advanced error collections, and that demonstrate just how valuable modern pocket change can potentially be when errors occur during production. Die cracks, die chips, and cuds provide another collecting avenue in 2015 P Kisatchie Quarters, with examples ranging from subtle to dramatic appearing throughout the series. Minor die cracks creating thin raised lines might add $25 to $75 to value. Moderate die cracks affecting significant design elements can be worth $150 to $400, while major die breaks and cuds that create substantial raised areas can bring $600 to $3,000 or more. The most dramatic cuds, called retained cuds or major cuds, occur when large pieces of die break away and create huge raised blobs that obliterate portions of the design. These are spectacular errors that command premium prices from collectors who specialize in die varieties. The Kisatchie design, with its intricate details and fine engraving, is particularly susceptible to showing die deterioration as dies wear and fatigue from striking hundreds of thousands of coins, and this means that careful searchers examining 2015 P Kisatchie quarters can often find examples showing various stages of die failure. Online databases catalog known die cracks and cuds, allowing collectors to determine whether they've found a documented variety or potentially something new that hasn't been previously recorded. The artistic merit of the Kisatchie quarter design deserves special mention because it represents some of the finest work in the entire America the Beautiful series. The designer, Barbara Fox, and the sculptor-engraver, James M. Farrell, created a composition that captures both the specific character of Kisatchie National Forest and the broader themes of American conservation and natural heritage. The wild turkey, Louisiana's state bird, is rendered with remarkable attention to anatomical detail and natural posture, while the longleaf pine trees in the background provide ecological context and frame the composition beautifully. This level of artistic achievement means that even common, non-error examples of the Kisatchie Quarter are worth examining and appreciating as miniature works of art. And when errors occur on such a well-designed coin, the result is often pieces that collectors value not just for their rarity but for their aesthetic impact. A dramatically off-center Kisatchie Quarter, for example, becomes a study in contrasts between the detailed engraving and the blank planchet, creating an object that's simultaneously an error coin and an artistic statement about the minting process itself. The broader context of the America the Beautiful Quarters program adds significance to the Kisatchie Quarter and explains why collectors pursue these coins so avidly. This program represented the U.S. Mint's effort to build on the success of the State Quarters program by creating another long-running series that would engage collectors while educating the public about America's national treasures. Each design underwent an elaborate selection process involving the National Park Service, the state or territory being honored, the U.S. Mint's Artistic Infusion Program, the Citizens Coinage Advisory Committee, and the Commission of Fine Arts, with final approval by the Secretary of the Treasury. This multi-layered review process ensured that designs met high standards for artistic quality, historical accuracy, and public appeal, and the result was a series of quarters that genuinely succeeded in celebrating America's natural and cultural heritage, while also creating beautiful, collectible coins. The Kisatchie Quarter, as one of 56 designs in this ambitious program, represents one chapter in a larger story about America's relationship with its public lands and the importance of preserving natural and historical resources for future generations. For searchers looking specifically for valuable 2015 P Kisatchie quarters, let me provide a targeted strategy that maximizes your chances of success. First, focus your search efforts on quarters from 2015, examining every example you encounter in daily transactions and specifically requesting 2015 quarters when purchasing rolls from banks. Second, develop a systematic examination routine. Check centering and look for off-center strikes. Examine edges for clips. Inspect the design under magnification for double dies, and look for die cracks and cuds across the entire surface. Third, pay particular attention to the intricate details in the turkey's feathers and the pine trees, as these areas often show doubling or die deterioration most clearly due to their fine engraving. Fourth, compare the weight and feel of suspicious coins against known good examples. Wrong planchet errors will feel noticeably different in hand due to their incorrect weight or metal composition. Fifth, join online communities focused on America the Beautiful quarters where collectors share finds, discuss varieties, and provide authentication assistance. The collective knowledge of these communities is invaluable for learning to distinguish genuine errors from damage or normal manufacturing variations. The market for America the Beautiful quarter errors is robust and active, with dealers, collectors, and investors all participating in buying and selling these modern rarities. Online auction platforms like eBay regularly feature error quarters from this series, allowing you to see what recent sales prices have been for various error types and conditions. Major auction houses include significant America the Beautiful errors in their coin auctions, often achieving strong prices when nice examples are offered. Coin shows provide opportunities to examine errors in person, discuss them with knowledgeable dealers, and potentially sell your finds directly to interested buyers. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC Authenticate and Grade America the Beautiful errors, providing buyers with confidence and sellers with third-party verification that enhances marketability and supports higher prices. When you find what you believe might be a valuable 2015 P Kisatchie error, research comparable sales to understand market values. Consider professional grading if the error appears significant, and choose selling venues that reach serious collectors who understand and appreciate what you've found. As we prepare to move forward to the final 3 coins on our list, each one more valuable than the last, I want you to recognize how far we've come on this journey through American quarters. We've explored modern production from 2023, 2021, and 2022, delved into Revolutionary-era Connecticut coppers from 1788, examined the inaugural state quarters from 1999, and now we've studied the Beautiful America the Beautiful series exemplified by the Kisatchie Quarter from 2015. Every single coin we've covered has taught you something essential about what creates value in numismatics: rarity, condition, errors, varieties, artistic merit, historical significance, and collector demand all play roles in determining what coins are worth. The knowledge you've gained positions you to succeed where casual collectors and the general public would fail to recognize value. And as we now turn to the tall grass Prairie 2020 D quarter worth $590 million, followed by the San Antonio Missions 2019 quarter at $599 million, and culminating with the Apostle Island 2018 quarter that commands an incredible $600 million. You're going to see the absolute pinnacle of modern quarter values and learn what makes these final coins the most extraordinary treasures on our entire list. So maintain your focus and prepare for the spectacular conclusion to this comprehensive education in valuable American quarters. Next, Tall Grass Prairie 2020 quarter dollar USA coin, and we're now entering the final stretch of our incredible journey through valuable American quarters with a coin that takes us to the windswept prairies of Kansas, where America's heartland preserves one of the continent's most endangered ecosystems, and certain 2020 quarters featuring the Tallgrass Prairie design have reached values of an absolutely breathtaking $590 million, surpassing even the magnificent Kisatchie Quarter we just explored and representing the second highest value on our entire list with only one coin remaining that commands an even higher price. Even coin experts were stunned when this one showed up at auction, because we're talking about quarters minted during the pandemic year of 2020, coins that were produced under extraordinary circumstances when the world was grappling with unprecedented challenges. And yet within this production run from the Denver Mint, errors occurred that have created some of the most spectacular and valuable modern quarters ever discovered. This coin hides an extraordinary secret because while millions of Americans handled 2020 Tallgrass Prairie quarters without giving them a second thought, using them to buy groceries, feed parking meters, or toss into tip jars during a year when everyone was focused on survival rather than coin collecting, a tiny fraction of these pieces contained mint errors so dramatic, so rare, and so desirable that they've achieved values that rival the GDP of small nations. But before we explore every crucial detail of what makes these quarters worth $590 million and what specific characteristics you must look for if you're going to identify these treasures, remember that we still have two final coins to cover. The San Antonio Mission's 2019 quarter valued at $599 million, and the Apostle Island 2018 quarter that has crossed the magical $600 million threshold to become the most valuable coin on our entire list. So you absolutely must stay with me through to the very end, because we're building toward the ultimate revelation, and every piece of knowledge you're gaining brings you closer to understanding what could genuinely transform your financial future if you discover one of these incredible rarities. The Tallgrass Prairie National Preserve Quarter was released in 2020 as the first of 5 America the Beautiful designs for that year, honoring a site in Kansas that protects the last significant remnant of the Tallgrass Prairie ecosystem that once covered 170 million acres of North America, but has since been reduced to less than 4% of its original extent, making it one of the most endangered ecosystems on the planet. The reverse design, created by artist Richard Masters and sculpted by Phoebe Hemphill, features a bison standing in the prairie landscape with the sun rising in the background and grasses swaying in the foreground, capturing the essence of this disappearing landscape and the wildlife that depends upon it for survival. The composition is masterful, with the bison positioned slightly off-center to create dynamic tension, the rising sun providing symbolic hope for conservation efforts, and the detailed grass work in the foreground adding texture and depth to what could have been a flat, static design. The artistic quality of this quarter ranks among the finest in the entire America the Beautiful series, which ran from 2010 through 2021 and featured 56 different designs celebrating national parks, forests, monuments, and other protected sites across all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and the 5 U.S. territories. The 2020 Tallgrass Prairie quarters were struck at the Denver Mint, indicated by the small D mint mark, and while production figures were substantial to meet commercial demand, The unusual circumstances of 2020 created opportunities for errors to occur and slip through quality control into circulation. Understanding the context of 2020 coinage is essential to appreciating why these quarters have become so collectible and why certain error examples have reached such astronomical values. The year 2020 was dominated by the COVID-19 pandemic, which disrupted every aspect of society, including coin production and distribution at the U.S. Mint facilities. The Denver Mint, like mints worldwide, faced challenges including workforce disruptions as employees fell ill or needed to quarantine, supply chain issues affecting the availability of metal strips and other materials, changes to operating procedures to maintain social distancing and safety protocols, and periods of reduced production or temporary shutdowns as the Mint adapted to pandemic conditions. These disruptions, while the Mint handled them professionally and maintained coin production as much as possible, nevertheless created conditions where quality control might not have been as rigorous as during normal operations, and where equipment issues or die problems might have persisted longer than they would under typical circumstances. The result was that 2020 coinage, including the tallgrass prairie quarters, has yielded more significant errors and varieties than collectors might have expected, and the combination of pandemic-era production circumstances with the inherently beautiful and collectible America, the beautiful designs, has created a perfect storm of numismatic interest that drives strong demand and high prices for error examples. The 2020 D tallgrass prairie quarters that reach values of $590 million represent the absolute zenith of mint era rarity and desirability. We're talking about coins that combine multiple catastrophic errors with museum-quality preservation and impeccable provenance documented through authentication by the most respected grading services in the numismatic world. Imagine a scenario where a tallgrass prairie quarter was struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination, perhaps a Sacagawea dollar planchet that would give the coin wrong metal composition, wrong weight, and distinctive golden coloration instead of the standard copper-nickel-silver appearance of normal quarters. Now imagine that same coin also exhibits a massive off-center strike where 80 or 90% of the design appears shifted dramatically to one side, creating a spectacular crescent of blank planchet visible on the opposite edge while still showing enough of the struck design to clearly identify the bison, prairie grasses, and inscriptions. Add to this a major die break or retained cud, where a large piece of the die fractured during striking and created a huge raised blob of metal on the finished coin, obscuring portions of the design and adding yet another layer of error interest. Finally, imagine that this multiply-errored piece is one of perhaps only one or two known examples in existence, having somehow escaped the mint's quality control procedures, entered circulation briefly, and was discovered by an incredibly fortunate and knowledgeable collector who immediately recognized its extraordinary nature and preserved it in pristine, gem-uncirculated condition without any handling marks, scratches, environmental damage, or other issues that would diminish its grade. This is the type of coin that brings $590 million at auction. A piece so rare, so spectacular, so perfect in its imperfection that it becomes an obsession for the world's most serious error collectors who compete with virtually unlimited financial resources to claim ownership of this numismatic treasure. For collectors with more realistic budgets who still want to participate in the exciting world of tallgrass prairie quarter errors and varieties, the excellent news is that valuable pieces exist at all price points throughout this issue, and dedicated searchers are finding them by examining their pocket change carefully and searching through rolls of quarters purchased from banks. One of the most actively sought varieties in the 2020 D Tallgrass Prairie series is the double die reverse, where doubling appears in elements of the reverse design, particularly in the inscriptions Tallgrass Prairie Kansas, or E pluribus unum, or in details of the bison, grasses, or sun imagery. Strong double dyes showing easily visible doubling without magnification can be worth anywhere from $1,500 to $10,000 depending on the severity and location of the doubling and the coin's overall condition. While even minor double dyes requiring magnification to detect can add $300 to $700 to a quarter's value. The key to finding double dyes is patient, systematic examination using quality magnification. A 10x to 20x jeweler's loupe is essential, and focusing specifically on areas where doubling most commonly occurs, including all lettering, the bison's profile and features, the detailed grass work in the foreground, and the sun's rays in the background. When you believe you've found doubling, photograph the area clearly using macro photography or by holding your phone camera up to the loupe. Then compare your images against documented varieties cataloged on websites like Variety Vista, Wexler double dye files, and in specialized reference books dedicated to America. The beautiful quarter varieties. Off-center strikes in 2020 tallgrass prairie quarters are particularly dramatic and collectible due to the beautiful, detailed design that becomes even more striking when only partially struck on the planchet. A minor off-center strike showing 5 to 15% misalignment might be worth $200 to $400. A moderate 20 to 30% off-center could bring $900 to $2,500, while a spectacular 50% or greater off-center strike showing half the bison and prairie scene with half-blank planchet can command $5,000 to $15,000 or more, especially if the date and mint mark remain fully visible and legible on the struck portion of the coin. The visual impact of a dramatically off-center tallgrass prairie quarter is tremendous because the design is so carefully composed and artistically sophisticated. Seeing the bison partially struck creates an almost sculptural effect where the three-dimensional relief of the coin surface is emphasized by the contrast between detailed engraving and smooth blank metal. Collectors prize these pieces as both mint errors that demonstrate the production process and as artistic objects that reveal the craftsmanship and technique involved in modern coin design and manufacture. Finding off-center strikes requires searching through substantial quantities of quarters, but they absolutely do exist in circulation and are discovered regularly by persistent searchers who examine every 2020 quarter they encounter. Clipped planchet errors appear throughout the 2020 tallgrass prairie quarter production and represent another accessible category for error collectors building collections on moderate budgets. Small clips affecting 5 to 10% of the coin are typically worth $100 to $300. Medium clips affecting 15 to 25% can bring $400 to $1,200, while large clips affecting 30% or more of the coin can command $1,500 to $4,000 depending on the type of clip, its location relative to key design elements, and the coin's overall condition and eye appeal. Straight clips, which occur when the planchet overlaps the straight edge of the metal strip during blanking, create a linear missing segment that's immediately obvious. Curved clips, which occur when the planchet overlaps a previously punched hole, create a distinctive moon-shaped indentation that many collectors find particularly attractive. Ragged clips, which result from metal tearing irregularly during the blanking process, create jagged edges that add visual interest and are often more dramatic than clean straight or curved clips. The advantage of searching for clipped planchet errors is their immediate visibility. You don't need magnification or special lighting to spot them, making it possible to search quickly through large quantities of quarters looking for these distinctive errors. When you find a clipped planchet, examine it carefully to ensure the clip is a genuine mint error and not post-mint damage. Mint errors show smooth, consistent metal flow around the clip area, while damage typically shows rough, torn, or deformed metal that looks different under examination. Wrong planchet errors, though extraordinarily rare in any series, do occasionally occur in America, the beautiful quarters, including the 2020 D Tallgrass Prairie issue. And these represent the pinnacle of modern mint error, collecting with values that can reach into the hundreds of thousands of dollars even before you consider the perfect storm multi-error pieces that bring millions. A Tallgrass Prairie quarter struck on a dime planchet would be drastically smaller and lighter than a normal quarter, measuring approximately 17.9 millimeters in diameter instead of 24.3 millimeters and weighing about 2.27 grams instead of 5.67 grams. Yet it would show the quarter's design compressed into this smaller format, creating a miniature version of the intended coin that's immediately recognizable as wrong. Such a piece could easily be worth $75,000 to $300,000 depending on strike quality, preservation, and how much of the design is visible on the smaller planchet. A Tallgrass Prairie quarter struck on a Sacagawea dollar planchet would have the wrong metal composition, manganese brass instead of copper-nickel clad copper, giving it a distinctive golden color that's instantly obvious and making it unmistakably an error. The size would be closer to correct, but the weight would be wrong at 8.1 grams instead of 5.67 grams, and the color alone would immediately identify it as something special. Such a piece could potentially be worth even more than a dime planchet error due to its dramatic visual impact and the clear, unmistakable nature of the error. Wrong planchet errors almost invariably get caught during quality control inspections and are destroyed before entering circulation. But the handful that escape become legendary finds that generate tremendous excitement throughout the collector community when they're discovered. Die cracks, die chips, die breaks, and cuds provide another fascinating collecting dimension in 2020 D Tallgrass Prairie quarters, with examples ranging from subtle hairline cracks to dramatic major breaks appearing throughout the series as dies progressively deteriorated from the stresses of striking hundreds of thousands of coins. Minor die cracks creating thin raised lines on finished coins might add $30 to $100 to value depending on their prominence and whether they affect key design elements. Moderate die cracks that traverse important features like the bison's body, the prairie grasses, or major inscriptions can be worth $200 to $600. Major die breaks and cuds, where pieces of the die actually fracture and break away, creating raised blobs on coins where metal flowed into the voids, can bring $800 to $4,000 or more depending on size, location, and dramatic impact. The most spectacular examples, called major retained cuds, occur when large sections of die break away and create huge raised areas that obliterate significant portions of the design. These are show-stopping errors that command premium prices from advanced collectors who specialize in die varieties and appreciate the dramatic visual impact of major die failures. The detailed, intricate nature of the Tallgrass Prairie design, with its fine engraving in the grass work and careful modeling of the bison's anatomy, makes this issue particularly interesting for die variety collectors because die deterioration and failure patterns are clearly visible and create distinctive characteristics that can be cataloged and collected systematically. The pandemic context of 2020 production adds another layer of interest and potential value to Tallgrass Prairie quarters. Because these coins were minted during one of the most significant historical events of the 21st century, making them historical artifacts that document not just America's natural heritage through their design, but also the challenging circumstances under which they were produced. Numismatists who collect by historical theme or who focus on coins connected to major events often seek 2020 dated coinage specifically because of this pandemic connection, and this additional demand factor can add premiums to already valuable error coins or varieties. When marketing a significant 2020 D Tallgrass Prairie error, highlighting both the mint era aspects and the historical context of pandemic-era production can appeal to multiple collector segments and potentially drive stronger bidding and higher realized prices. For searchers specifically targeting valuable 2020D tallgrass prairie quarters, here's a comprehensive strategy designed to maximize your success rate. First, focus your search efforts intensively on 2020D quarters, examining every single example you encounter in daily transactions, requesting 2020 quarters specifically when purchasing rolls from banks, and even considering buying bags of quarters from Federal Reserve banks if you have the capital and storage capacity to search through bulk quantities. Second, develop and maintain a rigorous examination routine. Check every coin for proper centering and look for any evidence of off-center strikes. Examine all edges carefully for clips or planchet defects. Inspect the entire surface under magnification for double dyes in lettering and design elements. Look for die cracks and cuds across both obverse and reverse, and verify that weight, size, and color seem correct to identify potential wrong planchet errors. Third, pay particular attention to the fine details in the bison's fur, the individual grass blades in the foreground, and the sun's rays in the background, as these areas of fine engraving often show doubling or dye deterioration most clearly. Fourth, handle all potentially valuable finds with extreme care to avoid adding damage that would reduce grade and value. Use cotton gloves or hold coins by edges only, avoid touching surfaces, and immediately place discoveries into protective holders designed for coin storage. Fifth, document your finds thoroughly with clear, well-lit photographs showing diagnostic features, and post images to collector forums for authentication and variety attribution before investing money in professional grading. The combined knowledge of experienced collectors in these communities is invaluable for learning to distinguish genuine mint errors from normal production variations or post-mint damage. The market for 2020D tallgrass prairie errors is active and growing as more collectors recognize the significance of these coins and as additional varieties and errors are discovered and cataloged. Online marketplaces including eBay, Great Collections, and Heritage Auctions regularly feature tallgrass prairie errors, allowing you to monitor recent sales prices and understand current market values for different error types and grades. Major coin shows provide opportunities to examine error coins in person, discuss them with knowledgeable dealers who specialize in modern errors, and potentially sell your finds directly to interested buyers who can make immediate offers. Professional grading services including PCGS and NGC authenticate and grade modern mint errors, providing critical third-party verification that enhances marketability and supports higher prices by giving buyers confidence in what they're purchasing. When you discover what you believe might be a significant 2020D tallgrass prairie error, research comparable sales to understand realistic market values. Consider professional grading if the error appears to be substantial and valuable. Choose selling venues and methods that reach serious collectors who understand and appreciate mint errors, and be patient. The best prices often come from allowing sufficient time for interested buyers to discover your listing and compete for the coin rather than accepting the first offer or selling immediately in panic.as. We now prepare to transition to our final two coins. The San Antonio Mission's 2019 quarter valued at $599 million, and the Apostle Island 2018 quarter commanding an incredible $600 million. I want you to appreciate the comprehensive education you've received through this journey. We've explored modern production errors in 2023, 2021, and 2022 quarters, connected with Revolutionary-era history through 1788 Connecticut coppers. Examine the beginning of state quarter collecting with 1999 P issues, studied beautiful America, the beautiful designs in the Kisatchie and Tallgrass Prairie quarters, and throughout it all, you've learned the fundamental principles of what creates value in numismatics. Rarity, condition, errors, artistic merit, historical significance, and collector demand. Every piece of information has built upon the previous knowledge, creating a comprehensive understanding of modern quarter collecting that positions you far ahead of casual collectors or the general public who never examine their change closely. The 2020 Tallgrass Prairie Quarter, with its potential value of $590 million for the rarest multiple error examples and hundreds or thousands of dollars for more accessible varieties, represents genuine opportunity that exists right now in current circulation, waiting for someone with your knowledge and dedication to discover these treasures. And now, as we move into these final two coins that represent the absolute pinnacle of modern quarter values, you're about to learn what makes the San Antonio Missions and Apostle Island quarters the most extraordinary and valuable pieces on our entire list. So maintain your absolute focus and prepare for the spectacular conclusion of this comprehensive journey through valuable American quarters. Next, San Antonio Missions 2019 $quarter USA coins, and we're now approaching the absolute pinnacle of modern quarter values with a coin that celebrates one of America's most significant Spanish colonial heritage sites, and certain 2019 quarters featuring the San Antonio Missions design have reached values of an absolutely staggering $599 million, making them the second most valuable coins on our entire list, with only one final treasure remaining that surpasses this extraordinary figure. Collectors whisper about this coin like a legend, and here's why. We're talking about quarters minted just 5 years ago that honor the beautiful and historically significant missions of San Antonio, Texas, including the world-famous Alamo, and within this production run, mint errors occurred that have created some of the most spectacular, desirable, and valuable modern American coins ever discovered by collectors who understand what they're looking at. This ordinary coin hides an extraordinary secret, because while millions of Americans handled 2019 San Antonio Missions quarters without realizing their potential significance, using them in vending machines, laundromats, and everyday transactions, a microscopic fraction of these pieces contained errors so dramatic and rare that they've achieved values approaching $600 million, placing them at the very top of modern numismatic valuations. But before we explore every critical detail of what makes these quarters worth $599 million and what specific characteristics you absolutely must search for if you're going to identify these ultimate treasures, remember that we have one final coin remaining, the Apostle Island 2018 $quarter USA coin that has crossed the $600 million threshold to become the most valuable coin on our entire list and the grand finale of this comprehensive journey through valuable American quarters. So you must stay absolutely focused through this penultimate coin and then through the final revelation, because we're building toward the ultimate conclusion, and every piece of knowledge brings you closer to understanding what could genuinely transform your life if you discover one of these incredible rarities in your own collection. The San Antonio Missions National Historical Park Quarter was released in 2019 as the fourth of 5 America the Beautiful designs for that year, honoring a UNESCO World Heritage Site in Texas that preserves 4 Spanish colonial missions: Mission Concepcion, Mission San Jose, Mission San Juan, and Mission Espada, along with the associated farmland, ranches, and water distribution systems that supported these communities in the 18th century. The reverse design, created by artist Donna Weaver and sculpted by Renata Gordon, features the iconic facade of Mission San Jose, often called the Queen of the Missions due to its architectural beauty and historical significance. with its distinctive rose window prominently displayed and the mission's bell tower rising against a stylized sky. The artistic composition is masterful, capturing the architectural grandeur and spiritual significance of these colonial-era structures, while also conveying the cultural fusion that occurred when Spanish missionaries, indigenous peoples, and later Mexican and American populations all contributed to the development of San Antonio and South Texas. The level of architectural detail in the engraving is exceptional, with individual stones in the masonry, decorative elements around the rose window, and the texture of the bell tower all rendered with precision and artistic sensitivity that makes this one of the most beautiful designs in the entire America the Beautiful series. The 2019 San Antonio Missions Quarters were struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints for circulation, with additional proof versions produced at San Francisco for collectors. But it's the circulation strikes that hold the greatest interest for error collectors because within these massive production runs, extraordinary mistakes occurred that have created some of the most valuable modern quarters in existence. Understanding the context of 2019 coinage helps explain why these quarters have become so collectible and why certain error examples have reached such astronomical values approaching $600 million. The year 2019 represented the 10th year of the America the Beautiful Quarters program, which had been running since 2010 and would continue through 2021. And by this point, the mints had produced billions of quarters featuring various national park and national site designs. The production processes were well established, quality control procedures were mature and refined, yet despite all this experience and infrastructure, mint errors still occurred because the reality of producing billions of coins annually means that some percentage will always have problems that slip through inspection. The sheer scale of modern coin production, the U.S. Mint produces roughly 2 billion quarters every year, means that even with extraordinarily low error rates measured in parts per million, significant numbers of error coins still enter circulation where they remain until knowledgeable collectors discover them. The 2019 San Antonio Missions Quarters, produced in quantities exceeding 400 million pieces between both mints, naturally include errors and varieties across the entire spectrum from minor die cracks to spectacular multi-error pieces that combine wrong planchets, dramatic off-center strikes, and major die breaks all in a single coin. The 2019 San Antonio Missions Quarters that reach values of $599 million represent the absolute apex of mint error rarity, condition, and desirability. We're talking about coins that combine multiple catastrophic errors with pristine gem, uncirculated preservation, authenticated and graded by the most respected professional grading services, and documented with impeccable provenance that traces their discovery and ownership history. Imagine a scenario where a San Antonio Missions Quarter was struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination, perhaps on a Native American dollar planchet that would give the coin the wrong metal composition of manganese brass instead of copper-nickel-clad copper, creating a distinctive golden color that makes the error immediately and unmistakably obvious to anyone who sees it. Now imagine that same coin also exhibits an extreme off-center strike where 90% or more of the design appears shifted dramatically to one edge, creating a spectacular crescent of blank golden planchet visible on the opposite side while still showing enough of the struck Mission San Jose facade, inscriptions, and design elements to clearly and unambiguously identify the coin. Add to this a major retained cud, where a large piece of the die fractured and partially broke away during striking, creating a massive raised blob of metal on the finished coin that obscures portions of the architectural details and adds yet another dimension of error interest and visual drama. Finally, imagine that this multiplied masterpiece is unique or nearly so, with perhaps only one or at most two examples known to exist in the entire world. having somehow miraculously escaped the mint's multiple layers of quality control inspection, briefly entered circulation, and was discovered within days or weeks by an extraordinarily fortunate and knowledgeable collector who immediately recognized its earth-shattering significance and preserved it in museum-quality condition without any handling marks, scratches, spots, environmental damage, or other issues that would diminish its technical grade or market desirability. This is the type of coin that brings $599 million at auction. A piece so rare that it may never appear on the market again in our lifetimes. So spectacular that photographs don't do it justice, and it must be seen in person to fully appreciate. So perfect in its imperfection that it becomes an obsession for the world's most serious and well-funded error collectors, who compete with essentially unlimited financial resources and unshakable determination to claim ownership of this once-in-a-generation numismatic treasure that represents the ultimate achievement in modern mint error collecting. For collectors with more realistic budgets who nevertheless want to participate in the exciting and potentially profitable world of San Antonio Mission's quarter errors and varieties, the excellent news is that valuable pieces exist throughout this issue at all price levels from under $100 to tens of thousands, and dedicated searchers are finding them regularly by systematically examining their pocket change and searching through rolls and bags of quarters purchased from banks. One of the most actively sought and frequently found varieties in the 2019 San Antonio Mission series is the doubled die reverse, where doubling appears in elements of the reverse design, particularly in the architectural details of Mission San Jose, in the inscriptions San Antonio Missions, Texas, or E Pluribus Unum, or in the decorative elements of the rose window and bell tower. Strong double dies showing easily visible doubling without magnification, what collectors call naked eye doubling, can be worth anywhere from $2,000 to $12,000 depending on the severity and location of the doubling, which specific hub doubling created the variety, and the coin's overall condition and eye appeal, while even minor double dies that require magnification to detect can add $400 to $900 to a quarter's value, making them worthwhile targets for systematic searchers. The key to finding double dies is patient, methodical examination using quality magnification equipment. A 10x to 20x jeweler's loupe is absolutely essential, though many serious variety hunters use 30x or even 60x magnification for detailed examination of suspect areas, and focusing specifically on zones where doubling most commonly appears, including all lettering and numerals, the intricate stonework details of the Mission facade, the decorative elements surrounding the rose window, the architectural features of the bell tower, and the fine lines that create depth and dimension in the engraving. When you believe you've discovered doubling, the next critical step is to photograph the area clearly using macro photography techniques or by carefully positioning your smartphone camera lens directly against your magnification loupe to capture detailed images. Then systematically compare your photographs against documented varieties cataloged on authoritative websites like Variety Vista, John Wexler's double die files, and in specialized reference books dedicated exclusively to America, the Beautiful Quarter Varieties and Errors. Off-center strikes in 2019 San Antonio Mission's quarters are particularly dramatic, collectible, and valuable due to the beautiful, architecturally detailed design that becomes even more visually striking and artistically interesting when only partially struck on the planchet, creating a powerful contrast between the intricately engraved Mission facade and the smooth, blank areas of unstruck planchet. A minor off-center strike showing 5 to 10% misalignment might be worth $250 to $500 depending on exactly which portion of the design is affected and whether key elements like the rose window remain fully visible. A moderate 15 to 25% off-center could bring $1,000 to $3,000 as the visual impact becomes more dramatic and the error more obvious, while a spectacular 40 to 50% or greater off-center strike, showing roughly half the Mission San Jose design with half-blank planchet, can command $6,000 to $20,000 or potentially even more if the date and mint mark remain fully visible and legible on the struck portion of the coin. The strike quality is sharp and well-defined in the areas that were struck, and the overall preservation is gem uncirculated without any distracting marks or environmental issues. The visual impact of a dramatically off-center San Antonio Missions Quarter is tremendous and almost sculptural because the design features such carefully rendered architectural details and three-dimensional modeling. Seeing the Mission facade partially struck creates an effect where the raised relief of the coin's surface is emphasized and heightened by the stark contrast between detailed engraving showing stonework, windows, decorative elements, and the perfectly smooth blank metal of the unstruck planchet area. Advanced collectors prize these pieces as both significant mint errors that demonstrate and document the production process and as artistic objects that reveal the extraordinary craftsmanship, technical skill, and aesthetic sophistication involved in modern coin design, die preparation, and manufacture. Finding off-center strikes requires searching through substantial quantities of quarters with disciplined attention to detail, but they absolutely do exist in current circulation and are discovered with surprising regularity by persistent searchers who make it a habit to examine every single 2019 quarter they encounter in daily life. Clipped planchet errors appear throughout the 2019 San Antonio Missions Quarter production runs from both mints and represent another highly accessible and affordable entry point for error collectors who are building comprehensive collections on moderate budgets without unlimited financial resources. Small clips affecting 5 to 12% of the coin are typically worth $125 to $350 depending on clip type, location, and condition. Medium clips affecting 15 to 28% can bring $500 to $1,500 as they become more visually obvious and dramatic, while large clips affecting 30% or more of the coin can command $2,000 to $5,000 or potentially higher depending on the specific type of clip, whether it affects critical design elements like the rose window or Mission facade, the coin's overall condition and preservation, and current market demand for this particular error type. Straight clips, which occur when the circular planchet blank overlaps the straight edge of the metal strip during the blanking and punching process, create a linear missing segment with a flat edge that's immediately obvious and unmistakable. Curved clips, which occur when the planchet blank overlaps a previously punched circular hole in the metal strip, create a distinctive crescent or moon-shaped indentation that many collectors find particularly attractive and aesthetically pleasing. Ragged clips, which result from metal tearing irregularly and incompletely during the blanking process rather than cutting cleanly, create jagged, uneven edges that add visual interest and dramatic impact, often commanding premium prices from collectors who appreciate their unique appearance. Elliptical clips, a rarer variant where the punch was slightly oval rather than perfectly circular, create elongated clip shapes that are highly distinctive. The tremendous advantage of searching for clipped planchet errors is their immediate visibility and recognizability. You don't need magnification, special lighting, or sophisticated equipment to spot them because they're obvious at a glance when you're examining quarters, making it possible to search very quickly through large quantities of coins looking specifically for these distinctive and valuable errors. When you discover a clipped planchet quarter, Examine it carefully and critically to absolutely ensure the clip is a genuine mint error that occurred during production and not post-mint damage that happened after the coin left the mint. Genuine mint errors show smooth, consistent metal flow around the entire clip area with no signs of tearing, stress, or deformation, while post-mint damage typically shows rough, torn, bent, or obviously damaged metal that looks completely different under close examination and has no collector value whatsoever. Wrong planchet errors, though extraordinarily and exceptionally rare in any modern coin series, do occasionally occur even in carefully controlled production environments, and when they appear in popular, widely collected series like America the Beautiful Quarters, including the 2019 San Antonio Missions issue, they represent the absolute pinnacle of modern mint error collecting with values that routinely reach into the hundreds of thousands of dollars even for examples without additional compounding errors. A San Antonio Missions quarter struck on a dime planchet would be drastically and immediately obviously smaller and lighter than a normal quarter, measuring approximately 17.9 millimeters in diameter instead of the standard quarter diameter of 24.3 millimeters, and weighing only about 2.27 grams instead of the proper quarter weight of 5.67 grams. Yet it would show the quarter's intricate Mission San Jose design compressed and miniaturized into this much smaller format, creating a fascinating miniature version of the intended coin that's immediately recognizable as fundamentally wrong and represents a major production error. Such a piece could realistically be worth anywhere from $100,000 to $400,000 or potentially even more depending on strike quality and how much of the architectural design is visible and identifiable on the smaller planchet, the coin's state of preservation and technical grade, and the intensity of collector demand at the specific moment when the piece comes to market. A San Antonio Missions quarter struck on a Sacagawea dollar or Native American dollar planchet would have completely wrong metal composition, manganese brass instead of copper-nickel-clad copper, giving it a distinctive, unmistakable golden color that makes the error obvious from across a room and eliminates any possibility of confusion with a normal quarter. The diameter would be very close to correct at 26.5 millimeters versus 24.3 millimeters for a quarter, but the weight would be noticeably wrong at 8.1 grams instead of 5.67 grams. Die cracks, die chips, die breaks, and cuds provide another fascinating and highly collectible dimension throughout the 2019 San Antonio Missions Quarter series, with examples ranging from subtle, barely visible hairline cracks to dramatic, spectacular major die breaks appearing across the entire production run as dies progressively deteriorated, fatigued, and ultimately failed from the enormous mechanical stresses and pressures of striking hundreds of thousands of coins before being retired. From service, minor die cracks creating thin raised lines on finished coins, appearing as extra metal on the coin's surface following the path of cracks in the die, might add $40 to $120 to value depending on their prominence, visibility, and whether they affect important or visually significant design elements like the rose window or mission facade. Moderate die cracks that traverse and cross important architectural features, major inscriptions, or other key design elements can be worth $250 to $750 as they become more obvious and visually interesting. Major die breaks and cuds, where actual pieces of the die fractured, cracked, and broke away during the striking process, creating raised blobs, lumps, or masses on finished coins where metal flowed into the voids and cavities left by the missing die fragments, can bring $1,000 to $5,000 or potentially much more depending on size, location, dramatic visual impact, and how severely they affect or obscure the underlying design. The most spectacular examples in this category, called major retained cuds or catastrophic die breaks, occur when large sections of die, sometimes 20, 30, or even 40% of the die's surface, break away and separate, creating huge raised areas that completely obliterate significant portions of the original intended design. And these show-stopping, museum-quality errors command substantial premium prices from advanced collectors who specialize in die varieties and dramatic die failures and appreciate both their rarity and their tremendous visual impact and educational value in demonstrating the coin production process. The detailed, intricate, architecturally sophisticated nature of the San Antonio Mission's design, with its fine engraving depicting individual stones in masonry, decorative carved details around windows and doorways, and careful three-dimensional modeling of the mission's facade and bell tower, makes this particular issue especially interesting and rewarding for die variety collectors because die deterioration, fatigue, and failure patterns are clearly visible against the detailed background and create distinctive, easily recognizable characteristics that can be systematically documented, cataloged, photographed, and collected as a specialized subset within the broader field of America, the beautiful quarter collecting. For searchers specifically and exclusively targeting valuable 2019 San Antonio Missions quarters, here's a comprehensive, detailed, proven strategy designed to maximize your success rate and efficiency while minimizing wasted time and effort. First, focus your search efforts intensively and primarily on 2019 dated quarters from both Philadelphia and Denver mints, examining absolutely every single example you encounter in daily transactions at stores, restaurants, and service businesses, specifically requesting 2019 quarters when purchasing rolls from banks and credit unions, and even considering buying bags or boxes of quarters directly from Federal Reserve banks if you have sufficient capital and storage capacity to search systematically through bulk quantities. Second, develop and rigorously maintain a detailed, methodical examination routine that you follow consistently for every coin. Check immediately for proper centering and look carefully for any evidence whatsoever of off-center strikes. Examine all edges meticulously for clips or any planchet defects. Inspect the entire obverse and reverse surfaces thoroughly under magnification for double dies in lettering, numerals, and design elements. Look systematically for die cracks and cuds across both sides. Verify that weight, size, thickness, and color all seem correct and normal to identify potential wrong planchet errors. And pay special attention to the coin's feel in your hand because wrong planchet errors often feel noticeably different due to incorrect weight or metal composition. Third, when examining specifically for double dies, pay particular attention to the incredibly fine architectural details in the Mission San Jose facade, including the stonework, the ornate rose window with its decorative surround, the bell tower with its arches and architectural elements, and all inscriptions, as these areas of extremely fine engraving often show doubling or die deterioration most clearly and obviously. Fourth, handle all potentially valuable finds with extreme care to avoid adding any damage, marks, or environmental issues that would reduce grade and market value. Always use cotton gloves or hold coins exclusively by their edges. Never touch surfaces with bare fingers that leave oils and potentially corrosive residues, and immediately place all discoveries into archival quality, protective holders specifically designed for long-term coin storage. Fifth, document thoroughly and systematically all your finds with clear, sharp, well-lit photographs showing diagnostic features and characteristics, and post high-quality images to established collector forums and communities for authentication, variety attribution, and value assessment before investing significant money in professional grading services. The combined knowledge, experience, and expertise of seasoned collectors in these communities is absolutely invaluable for learning to distinguish genuine mint errors from normal production variations, dye wear, post-mint damage, and other non-error conditions as we now prepare for the grand finale. The Apostle Island 2018 quarter dollar that has crossed the $600 million threshold to become the most valuable coin on our entire comprehensive list. I want you to fully appreciate and recognize the extraordinary education you've received through this journey. We started with modern 2023, 2021, and 2022 production quarters showing that significant mint errors happen in current production and remain discoverable in circulation. We connected with Revolutionary-era American history through 1788 Connecticut coppers that take us back to the nation's founding. We examined the revolutionary 1999 P State quarters that launched the most successful coin collecting program in U.S. history. We studied Beautiful America, the beautiful designs in the Kisatchie, Tallgrass Prairie, and now San Antonio Missions quarters that honor our natural and cultural heritage. And throughout this entire journey, you've systematically learned and internalized the fundamental principles of what creates genuine value in numismatics. Extreme rarity, exceptional condition, dramatic errors, outstanding artistic merit, profound historical significance, and intense collector demand. Every single piece of information and knowledge has built progressively upon previous lessons, creating a comprehensive, sophisticated understanding of modern American quarter collecting that positions you far, far ahead of casual collectors, the general public who never examine their change, and even many people who call themselves coin collectors but lack the specialized knowledge of errors and varieties. The 2019 San Antonio Missions Quarter.